So we got
6.
yeah, but Danny? There's 5 of us here.
6.
There's 1, 2. You heard the thing, and Danny did.
Oh,
Well,
we got enough for a quorum.
In December?
Harry?
See you, planning commission members. Quite a bit, actually, and I can't remember. That's terrible.
What do you forget?
Yes. Her name.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. And just a quick note before we get started with everything, just so you're aware of it. We're going to pick this meeting up exactly where we continued from last time. So this first part of it, we've already had public discussion on the first part, and all that's been closed, and we're in the panel discussion right now. And then once we get into the second part with the metro districts, then we can take public comment at that time, just so you're aware of what the process is we're going to go through. Okay, we start our meetings with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. God of justice and mercy, we know that you're with us at all times and in all places, if only we turn to you in faith. And so we turn to you now, seeking your continued blessings on those of us who've chosen public service, as well as those members of our community who are with us tonight to join in our deliberations and decision-making. We ask that you would give all of us patience and the commitment to respect and to listen to each other. For the members of this commission, help us always to be mindful that we are public servants. Help us to hear with our hearts and to think clearly and reasonably. Help us to have the vision to look at the issues before us with wisdom and the determination to do what is best, even if it's not easy. Guide us in all we do to work for the common good. We ask your blessings on all those who support and contribute to the work of this commission, knowing without their diligent efforts, our work here would not be possible. Loving Creator, we pray all these things in the name of Jesus and all that is holy. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Buck. Commissioner Carlson.
Present.
Commissioner Owens.
Present.
Commissioner Sands.
Here.
Commissioner Burton.
Here.
Commissioner Wilcox. Chair Hogendag.
Present.
Commissioner Kirkwood.
Here.
Commissioner Schott Grace.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, now if everybody would turn off your cell phones so we don't get disrupted. Or at least mute them. Do we have a staff report on the County Commissioner's actions?
None today.
Okay, and we don't have any consent agenda items on the list. So at this point in time, if we have any citizen comments on anything not in front of the Planning Commission tonight, this is the time that you can bring that up. Okay. If you'll state your name and address, please.
Greg Lopez, 36792 U Ridge Drive, Elizabeth, Colorado. So, I want to share with you that the minutes of the Planning Commission meetings are the authoritative record of public comments, discussions, and decisions made by the Planning Commission board members. As you know, minutes that are poorly written or omit any mention of material evidence can be detrimental to an organization during litigation or government investigations. At the January 3rd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, the members of this board approved the minutes of the December 6, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. I would like for the record this evening to show that the minutes, which are the authoritative record of the December 6th meeting, makes no mention of the letter I provided to the Planning Commission members that evening, and that I had respectfully asked that it be made part of the official record. Recognizing that perhaps the omission of my letter, which outlines the reasons why the public hearing on the agenda that evening was in violation of the Elbert County zoning regulations, page 185, article 16, special district, and 2 Colorado revised statute CRS 32-1-207 and CRS 32-1-204, was nothing more than an oversight on the part of the county staff. I am resubmitting the same letter and ask that it be made part of the official record of this meeting once again. I respectfully ask that the minutes of this meeting accurately reflect my remarks under the public comments of this meeting when they are presented to the Planning Commission for approval, and that this letter be included in the packet provided to the Board of County Commissioners when this submittal is presented to them. Should anyone in this room or members of the press feel that my remarks are inappropriate or inaccurate, or perhaps question my integrity, I have copies of the approved minutes of the December 6, 2022 meeting as material evidence to validate that there was no reference to my submitted letter.
Any other comments? Okay, citizen comments are closed. And now we're looking for the approval of the meeting minutes for January 3rd. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Okay. I would entertain a motion for approval or if discussion or, okay, go ahead.
So I read the minutes. I have moved that we approve the meeting minutes as stated.
Do we have a second?
Eric seconded it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the meeting minutes for January 3rd have been approved. Okay, so now I'm going to reopen the public hearing on for the continuation of the Bandera East PUD and Bandera West PUD amendment to the Independence PUD. At this point, we're going to reopen it exactly where we left off before with the discussion by the Planning Commission members. So was everybody able to review all the extra documentation? Any comments on the extra documentation that we requested and got last time?
Could you please turn your microphone on, Commissioner Owens? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. The last point is 44.4% of those intersections that I'm indicating of the 9 had a negative change where they would, in my estimation or understanding, would get worse at some point in time in the future. I didn't see numbers on a yearly basis for starting from 2022 each year going to the 2030 target and 2041. At any rate, I'd like clarification on, am I seeing that those numbers correctly, that there's a number of those or 4 of these intersections that will go down in their rating or in their loss of service? I'm sorry, level of service, forgive me.
I believe that when you're looking at that, they're estimating the amount of traffic that would be generated over the next 10 to 20 years and what might need to be done with those intersections. And it's kind of it's based on a lot of information and knowledge that they have, and to the best of their ability, they think that that's what might happen with those intersections and some of the things that need to be done to them at that point in time when that traffic becomes greater. We have a lot of other factors other than just independence that enter into those equations too. So I mean, that's the way I took it. Any other input?
Do we have any input from independents that would clarify that, or?
We can ask.
Am I making sense in my analysis?
Yeah, and just for the record, Brian Connolly with the law firm Vaught and Johnson for the applicant. Which intersection specifically are you asking about?
There's a number of them in the report. They go Singing Hills and Hilltop Road has it goes from an F, which is the worst, to an A, which is great, right? That's what I would be obviously hoping for in the best equation. But Singing Hills and Flintwood goes from a B to a C, and Singing Hills and Elbert Road goes from a C to an E or an F, depending on the stage. I understand that there's stages, and kind of where I'm driving for is in some analysis, are we seeing that these places of impact that are measured in the study are going to be the same, worse, or better? And by my estimation, 44.4% of them are going to be less, and yet the engineer said that these changes will accommodate the traffic. And I'm just wanting clarification for that, because I feel like it's going in a negative direction, and I'm just trying to understand that.
Sure, it's a good question, and as Mr. Chair indicated, so what all of these intersections and what this analysis looks at is not just traffic volumes that are generated by this project, but traffic volumes that are generated by growth in background traffic, whether that's other projects or just new homes, new development. And so what the code requires us to do is to mitigate our impact on transportation. And so, for example, when you see that change on, in some places where you see, going from roundabouts being added or lanes, turn lanes being added that increase the level of service, several of those are because of this project. So this project will do those things to offset the traffic impact. As it relates to things like, to use one of the examples you used, the intersection of Singing Hills and Flintwood, that's far enough away from this project, and it's also in a different county, right? So this project is not, that impact is more from background traffic than from this project, and so Douglas County has long-term plans to widen Hilltop and Singing Hills Road, and those would be dealt with as part of that capital improvement that the county's making.
And I sort of had the same question that Dwayne came up with, and particularly on those intersections where there's obviously some deterioration, that you guys are willing to put the roundabouts in that would handle your part of these issues, or the turn lanes or whatever.
Yeah, so if you'll remember from the December 6th hearing, what the traffic improvements, and Jim will correct me if I get this wrong, the traffic improvements that are being made are, there's repaving being done along Hilltop Road. There's the construction that's already required by the current PUD of Delbert Road from Hancock Parkway, where it goes up to the corner of Delbert and Singing Hills. There's a payment that's being made to help construct that roundabout at Singing Hills and Delbert Road that's already been made to Douglas County, and Douglas County will build that roundabout using those funds. And then also as part of what you're deciding on tonight, there's an extension of Delbert Road down from Hancock Parkway to Hilltop, or County Road 158, which will also result in improvements in level of service. So those are all being done to offset the impact that this project will have.
And you guys have taken those into account?
Yes, this study, it takes that into account.
Well, the study does, but I mean, I'm asking you if you're going to do that, yeah.
Yes, and just something to remind the Planning Commission of is that, you know, before we can come back and actually build houses or streets or anything, we'll be coming back with a plat application as this builds out, right? And so this traffic study will be updated as we come back for those plat applications, so you'll get to see this in more detail when the specific unit sizes and lot sizes are all determined.
Thank you.
I have a question on the same traffic study. Where it lists the projected levels of service on page 6, item 7 says Delbert Road and Hancock Way. And it talks about westbound left turn movement. And I don't think there's any westbound left turn movement at that intersection.
Sorry, when Delbert Road is extended south to County Road 158, there then could be westbound left turn traffic.
Not at the intersection with Hancock Way. Hancock Way is internal, and there is no westbound anything at that intersection.
So where Greg has got his laser pointer, can you put it at the intersection there, Greg?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's what we're talking about. So if traffic's exiting the project to the west and then turning and going south on Delbert Road, that's the left turn traffic that's referenced here.
But it says westbound left turn movement. Oh, okay, so westbound on Hancock Way turning south on Delbert.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that will be a relatively small share of the traffic.
It is a small share. I just was confused when I read that.
Do you have influence on the roundabouts that would be installed at those future locations or new locations? We live in a rural county and you have truck traffic. I've been up to northern Colorado where they put, Longmont and Fort Collins, and they put roundabouts everywhere. I promise you, I can't get a flatbed trailer around.
Yeah, it's a fair concern. So my understanding is that Douglas County is controlling the construction of the roundabout at Delbert Road and Singing Hills Road, and so I'm looking at Greg to confirm that.
Elbert County. So Elbert County and Douglas County are working together on that project. They really haven't started a design on the 158 and Delbert yet, but we kind of follow the engineers. So we've got engineers from both sides, both counties, and their proposal's kind of what we go with, because that's not.
Well, and on future, I mean, if you have concerns on future intersection improvements in Elbert County, that would be something to take up with the Road and Bridge Department, because they're the ones that make those decisions.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
Not on traffic. I have another.
Okay. You have
Another comment. In your table on land use, permitted use chart, page 6 and 7, under temporary, you have listed minor mining, oil and gas, which is permitted in all the districts. And you have major mining, oil and gas, which is by special permit. Can you define what you mean by minor and major, and what would those actions be?
I believe those terms are defined in the county's zoning regulations.
But this is separate.
Yeah, it's a supplemental standard, essentially. It's a process that's, administratively done. A minor application would be done administratively.
So they're just taking this directly out of the county zoning as opposed to specific to this project?
And they had a variety of adjustments that they made to that, and that one in particular I'm unaware of off the cuff here, but they generally took things out of the code and modified them as appropriate for what they were proposing.
Yeah, and Commissioner Burton, just for reference, if you look under the heading of where it says 2 definitions, it says, for purposes of the PUD development guide, the following terms shall be defined as follows, and then the ones that are not otherwise defined in the PUD are as defined in the Elbert County zoning regulations. I just don't remember off the top of my head what the difference is between the major and minor in the county zoning regulations.
Right. But they're taking it and making they have a separate, that's what Greg was saying, they've essentially taken our zoning and adopted or modified it slightly for this application. So I wonder why that's still in there. Why are they?
It gives just different levels of review, basically. A minor review is something that's done administratively. A major review would be something that would typically go before the Planning Commission and the board.
It's not really talking about review. It's talking about uses that are permitted. Uses that are permitted in the independent subdivision, and under temporary it says mining, oil and gas, major and minor, and I'm questioning why that's even in there. Or if it's left in there, why it would not be a special use in either case, major or minor.
It's not necessarily a special use in typically any other zone. So oil and gas that might be coming in the agricultural zone, for example, would not be a special use application.
Why? Okay, my point is, though, it's permitted without a special use in every zone, every area use on this proposed project. So on independence, are we saying that we're going to permit temporary uses? We're going to permit mining in every zone if it's minor and if it's major special use? Because this applies to the PUD, not necessarily to the zoning ordinance itself.
So, Commissioner Burton, I might be able to answer your question. So I think you're asking first, why is this allowed in here at all? And
right.
That was based on feedback provided by the Board of County Commissioners when the original independence was approved, that they wanted to have opportunities for oil and gas development if it was available at some point in the future. And so what you see in the PUD is an allowance for temporary oil and gas uses. So, for example, let's say it takes a long time to build this project out. Maybe the landowner has an opportunity to have some temporary lease of mineral rights on the property and can do that before development of homes or businesses occurs. The major is done by special use permit, which would require us to come back before you and before the Board of County Commissioners to approve that.
Okay, so we're kind of trying to make a distinction between things that could happen between now and full development.
Yes.
I think that needs to be defined when this goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
And Commissioner, I think we,
There is a commissioner that really looks at mineral rights. It's right here in front of me. Okay, there is a commissioner that really looks at, well. Okay. There is a commissioner that looks at mineral rights and really has a consideration for mineral rights. And I believe that is in there because they want to be sure that the mineral rights are secured.
Secured.
Yes. And options to whatever the property owner, what have you, wants to do with mineral rights. And I think that's where it comes from.
It's currently in the Bandera. I looked at Bandera East. I didn't pull up Bandera West, but that's currently in permitted use by special review in Bandera East. So,
Okay, but if it's by special review, shouldn't it have an S rather than a P? In both.
Yeah.
In both cases, minor and major, it would seem reasonable that it should be.
No, not when you're dealing with the charts.
Not when I'm dealing with
Not
it.
not when you're dealing with the tables. I don't know. We'd have to look at that. I don't think that'd be appropriate when we're looking at table distinction. I don't think so. We'd have to look at that. Roger, I really.
Look at it at what point?
As between where we define it in the tables as per the size of the area, stuff like that. I think, because I think there is a difference in what's allowable in a minor and a major subdivision.
No, but that's just not major or minor subdivision, it's major or minor mining.
Commissioners, I would just suggest that we're happy to clarify this issue with the Board of County Commissioners when we get there.
Yeah, that would be something that there is an expert
agree, it
on the
would be.
board that knows of that very well.
I'd like to have that considered when it goes to the commission.
We'll do that.
Any other discussion?
Brian, I had a question from previously, so I need to find my note here.
Commissioner, I have your questions written down if you want me to answer them.
No, this is something that when I was going through the review, I came up with a question. It's a comment you made previously when we were talking about the density or lot standards that were in what you're proposing versus what was existing. And you said at present, current lot sizes vary from 50 by 100 to 70 by 100. In the present Bandera, or first PUD.
So there are actually some that go up to 80 by 100 in the current filing 1 of Independence.
Right. And then you said when you're asking to modify the lot sizes, you specifically said the proposed lot sizes are going to be 60, 70, 80 by 130. And that is actually larger than what you're proposing now. But if I go to the chart on page 7 in the document by Norris Design, it states that alternative single family would be 3,500 to 5,000 square feet.
Yes.
Standard single family, 5,000 to 699, and large single family, 7,000, and estate lots, 21,780. So the lot sizes, as stated in this residential standard chart, are smaller than what you're saying you have now. But when you made your statement at the previous meeting what you said was they would actually be larger than what's presented in this table. So I'm just trying to clarify what you said before versus what's in the document.
Sure, and I don't remember exactly what I might have said before, but the lot sizes that are, first of all, again, lot sizes are set at plat. So we'll be coming back before you with a plat that will set the exact dimensions of the lots.
I understand that, but you still presented in this document, which is what we're considering tonight.
What the PUD includes, so if you look at section 5 of the PUD document, the PUD has standards for minimum lot sizes. It has, and then those standards also include minimum lot widths. And so in the 3,500 to 5,000 alternative single-family lots, that allows for lot widths of 40 to 49 feet. Then in the standard single-family lots that are 5,000 to 6,000 or 5 to 7,000 square feet, those lot widths would be 50 to 69 feet in width. The 7,000 plus would be 70 to 100 feet in width, and then the estate lots, which are half-acre lots, could be 100 or more feet in width. So all this does is sets the kind of the general parameters for lot sizes, and then the actual dimensions of the lots will be determined when we come back with the plat.
Right.
So it supersedes that.
Well, yeah, but it will supersede this. This is what we're talking about tonight, because it's in the document. So I just wanted to clarify, because it seems like we're increasing the number of units, but we're really not increasing or changing the lot size.
So, Commissioner, Jim just reminded me that I think what you're remembering on the lot sizes was actually when we brought the filing 2 and 3 plats through here.
That is not, I wrote this down specifically from your presentation at the last meeting.
So the filing 2 and 3 plats contemplate lot sizes that are exactly as you just read off. So the plats that the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners have already approved have those lot sizes. The lot sizes going forward beyond that would be consistent with what's in the PUD.
In this table?
Yes.
Okay. And that's how you're in fact increasing the number of units, or asking to increase the number of units on the property, because the lot sizes will in fact be smaller.
It allows for smaller lot sizes and more units, but also more open space, yes.
Okay, that's kind of poses itself. You're increasing the amount of open space, but increasing the number of units. That's been a little confusing all the way along. But I can understand if you're going to decrease the size of the lots, you could increase the number of units.
Yes. And again, your housing needs assessment that the county is working on is contemplating smaller lot sizes and a different variety of housing product.
Okay, and that brings me to my next question. That in the narratives that are part of the packet, it talks about the possibility of multifamily at various locations. I don't have a specific page number, but during this discussion, there's been the possibility of multifamily. My interest in that is on your various drawings that show the proposed layout. You don't show any areas for multifamily, so how would that be accomplished?
Again, the areas for multifamily would be determined at the time of plat.
At the time of planning. Yes. So in essence, you would reduce some of the single-family lots or combine them into some multifamily units.
Yes, there's a unit cap in this PUD. So right. if there were multifamily units built, the number of single-family units that could be built would be reduced by the number of multifamily built.
And I can see that, because in your various documents, you've shown in the drawings, you have an overall drawing. This is where it was confusing to me. You've got an overall drawing, which was a part of the overall road exhibit by Core Consultants. You've got the roads and all the lots. You know which document I'm talking about. I mean, it's throughout. You've got several maps that show lot configuration.
Yeah, that may have been, was that part of the traffic study, or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just one potential layout that, again, in order to have that approved, we would need to bring a plat back to you, and you would need to approve it.
And then on the document we're looking at tonight, Independence Plan Unit Development Amendment, You just have planning areas 4, 5, 6, 7 that are not defined.
That's right.
Defined by area, but
A
not-
PUD has planning areas.
Exactly.
And
So
it
that's what we're
generally,
talking about.
right, it generally establishes the rules for development, and then when a plat comes in is when the actual layout is set.
Right, so within this, that layout that's shown here could be modified
Yes.
somewhat,
Yes.
but not substantially because of the traffic pattern.
It would need to meet with the planning area
Right,
boundaries, yes.
and, you know, the detailed plat at that point.
Yes.
I understand that. So that's in fact where we come up with a different lot size configuration in those other planning units that have not yet come before us in the final form.
Correct, yeah. None of this can be built until a plat is approved.
Right. Okay. That's all. I was just wanted to clarify in my mind how some of these numbers came up, and they didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
That's great. Any other discussion?
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Greg, you do, Kevin? Do you? Okay. Other than setbacks in our code, Greg, other than setbacks, is there any distinction in the code regarding lot sizes?
Lot sizes are based on what the property might be zoned. So there's a minimum lot size based
Yeah.
on whatever that zoning category might be.
Yeah, based on this zoning. Is there any distinction in the code regarding the lot sizes? We have no limitations.
So the limitations,
Setbacks are met.
right, so this is a PUD zone. It kind of incorporates elements of other zone categories. The way kind of the size of buildings, if you will, might be corralled to some degree is the setbacks, front, side, rear, the height of the building as well.
Setbacks determine our lot sizes.
Setbacks and building height determines how big a building you can build on that lot.
Okay, all right. This is to the developer. How much money have you already invested in the infrastructure as far as water system, sewer, roads, bridge, no bridges, but everything else that you put in that development over there? How much has been invested? Can you give me just a ballpark estimate?
A hell of a lot.
That's what I kind of, okay, millions.
I don't, certainly millions, yes.
Okay, okay. Is there a cap for this unit development based on the lot size, based on the property size?
The applicants are proposing 1,400 units on this property. Bandera, the existing PUD on the property is approved for 920. The amount of open space that's being provided with this application is more than what is provided as part of Bandera as well. So they've adjusted the size of lots and the layout of the development to accommodate smaller lot sizes to some degree and more open space commercial zoning as well.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. As far as we meet the open space requirements, because that's in our code, is as far as when we meet that, it does not matter how much is developed in the development areas. Is that correct?
There are a variety of functions that go into that. How you lay it out, sure, what parks you might provide, other areas for, commercial or other types of development.
Multifamily units.
It offers a variety of different housing options or housing styles that perhaps could be developed on the property in accord with the PUD that's being proposed.
Okay, but as far as we meet our open space requirements by code, then what's developed within the area is allowed.
I would generally agree with that. I think a PUD in many respects is about negotiation, that they want something here, we want something there as a county or, in accord with the code or looking at things that they want to change as part of that PUD. That would typically be part of that kind of negotiation and discussion as well.
Okay, so when they come forward with the amendments to do the filings, essentially, we're gonna hear each one of those, I imagine, when they come forward. That's when we'll be able to determine if they met their setbacks and everything else in accordance with our code.
In accordance with our code and the PUD document that we're looking at now.
That we're looking at. And that was the last question I have. Has our PUD document been amended in any way to accommodate their changes?
That they're proposing with this application?
Their proposals, but has our guidelines been amended in any way to accommodate their changes?
I think that they have proposed a variety of changes to their development guidelines, basically for this property, that adjusts what's currently on it, which is Bandera East and West, and is proposing a variety of changes to this particular site that allows different development options, including commercial. So there are changes that are being proposed that would be allowed going forward based on what they have proposed.
Okay, but the question is, have we changed anything in our codes or anything to accommodate their changes in their PUD?
I'd have to go and take a look at the timing of some of that, but the development option that they're proposing allows for 50% open space, and there's a trade-off for that in terms of the size and development that's offered, essentially what they're proposing to do. So exactly the timing of that, I'm not sure how that relates to Bandera, I'm sorry.
And Commissioner Wilcox, I'll just say that as part of this process, we have not asked for any amendments to the code.
That's what I want to get to. We have made no changes in our codes or anything to accommodate the changes in this PUD.
That's correct.
Right? Okay, that's what I want to kind of find out. I wanted to be sure that that hasn't been done. So, what has changed in the off-site improvements as to the initial application compared to now?
So the primary changes are this advances the obligation to construct improvements on County Road 158 on Hilltop Road. And then it adds the obligation to construct the extension of Delbert Road from Hancock Parkway down to County Road 158.
Okay, how much are you changing? What are you doing to 158?
My understanding is that we are resurfacing County Road 158, which is something that the county would otherwise be required to do, but it's being done as a condition of this development.
How far?
All the way to County Road 13.
13? Okay. Okay, and Delbert Road extension, you're bringing that all the way to 158?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
To follow the same line on Delbert Road, that in our transportation master plan, that's designated as a major collector.
I might defer to Greg on that. I'm not sure.
It is. I looked it up.
Okay.
It's designated as a major collector, and Hilltop is a minor collector. And so your proposal when you build those is to meet those standards?
Yes, we're required to do that.
Okay.
Those are all my questions.
All right. If there's no more discussion, no more questions, then I would entertain a motion.
Commissioner, I might clarify something on the timing. So you asked the question about the full width of Delbert Road. My understanding is that this project will not require the full width. 2 lanes would be built, which is what the traffic study requires. But we would dedicate the right-of-way so that those additional 2 lanes could be built in the future. Sorry for the...
I
That would be I'm sorry to jump in, that would be kind of a typical way development is done, in that their requirement is to meet the needs for their development, as other developments might occur, around the county or in Douglas County. That road may need to be increased in size. So by dedicating the right-of-way and providing the possibility for increasing the size of that and putting in what's needed as part of this development, that would be, the term of art is the nexus between what they need to provide and what their impact is.
Number, I got everything up here, don't have a filing number. You got it? I had everything else up but the filing number.
If I might jump in here for just a little bit, it sounds like there's not as many questions left from the Planning Commission. I wanted to touch upon kind of your role in this meeting, and that's to review the record, the information that's been submitted by the applicant, the testimony that has come before you at the meeting on 12/6 and this evening, and then weigh that against the criteria that you have. And there are a few criteria here, and I just want to touch on them briefly to keep them in mind as you're deliberating on this. The first one relates to the comprehensive plan. In the staff report that was part of the record, there are residential discussions and categories that relate to roads and preserving open space and providing clustered residential development and schools. Commercial that addresses road access and public water and sewer. Community resources that address kind of the location of development in relation to paved roads and providing water conservation as well. That's the first criteria, again, relating to the comprehensive plan. The next few relate to compatibility with the surrounding land uses, whether the proposed rezoning would adversely impact the provision of public services, whether or not the rezoning would adversely impact the environment, create traffic congestion or burden, and whether or not it would be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the present or future inhabitants of Elbert County. So that's the 6 criteria. Really, all that information kind of boils down to that criteria.
I have one other question. 158, okay, that's a pretty narrow 2-lane road. And I understand you don't have the right-of-way for that? To expand that or extend it or increase the size of it?
This is Jim Yates with the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
We were asked and negotiate with the county to stay within the size that it is and just repave it, so we haven't explored further on additional right-of-way.
Okay. I think there's room to expand it, and it's a pretty narrow road. That's why I was just asking that question, because I drive it occasionally, and and particularly that intersection there at where you go into the existing facility, and that is it's only 3 lanes. And there's no turn lanes. There's 1 turn lane there, but no turn lane to go the other way. And I think it would be better, safer, okay, if we had that. And the other problem with 158 is there's some blind spots on that, some serious blind spots on 158. So if there's more traffic there, possibility of more accidents. So.
Again, we're kind of following the county's lead on what they're asking.
Yeah.
But as we bring additional plats in and the incremental impact comes, that'll be addressed.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. I just get a little worried about coming over those hills sometimes.
I understand.
Yeah, particularly on that narrow road. So, and with more traffic, there's, yeah. So, okay.
Okay. Are we done with questions? Okay. You entertain a motion?
Okay, I'll move that I'll move that we recommend approval for the Independence PUD amendment, file number PA 22-0036, to be forwarded to the county commissioners with all the conditions that are present.
If I might, there were 5 conditions that were proposed at the 12-6 meeting. I'm sorry, hold on just a moment. Okay.
Because I couldn't remember what was.
So, the conditions are on here, that the public hearing sign shall be removed within 7 days of the decision by the Board of County Commissioners. The PUD shall not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and then record a PUD zoning exhibit gets recorded. Recordation of all appropriate documentation to occur within 180 days of the Board of County Commissioners' approval. There was a 4th one that related to the Metro District and/or other financing be done. And in retrospect, that was a condition that really wasn't appropriate at the time of zoning.
Wasn't appropriate because we're going to hear that next.
Yep, so it's staff recommendation that that be removed, and I've removed it from here. The 4th one then would read that the applicant shall amend the PUD exhibit to include the planned access to the adjacent property to the north, as well as add the existing east-west right-of-way on the northern property line. There's 2 more. The applicant be required to repave County Road 158 between County Road 1, which is Elbert Road, and County Road 13. And then 6, in addition to existing obligations regarding County Road 1, Delbert Road, the applicant will be required to construct County Road 1 between County Road 5, which is Hancock Parkway, and County Road 158.
Okay. So all those conditions minus the one that we spoke about, which we're going to hear next, regarding the Metro District.
The six actual conditions are listed.
So we've got 6 conditions here.
That's staff's recommendation, yes.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Okay. Can we have a roll call vote of the members that are available to vote on this particular one?
Yeah, so I think it'd be appropriate to have some explanation of that. One of our commissioners was not yet appointed to the Planning Commission, so Commissioner Schott Grace would not be appropriate for her to vote. Commissioner Kirkwood reviewed the record, but the record had some holes in it, so he would not be available to vote either. So wanted that on the record as well. So roll call vote for the motion at hand. Commissioner Carlson. Commissioner Owens. Yes. Commissioner Sands. Yes. Commissioner Burton.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox. Chair Hogendijk.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0 with 2 abstentions.
Okay. At this point in time,
Take a break for 5 minutes.
that public hearing is closed, and we're going to open the
Peter.
hearing. Pardon?
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Pardon?
Want to get another water? Can we take a break?
Yes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break. And just a quick note, during this break that we're going to take, the commissioners are not allowed to talk to anyone about anything before the commission tonight. So don't try and buttonhole them and ask them questions because they're not allowed to. Thank you. So 10-minute break.
Okay.
could drive me. Done that on purpose.
Can I talk now?
There we go.
No, no, no. Very specific as to how they can export water. Yes. They did never agree, and we didn't ask for that.
We did.
No,
Okay,
no.
in all of these, it specifically says they will not export water outside
Okay, that's better.
the county.
All right.
Well, I think it'd be better.
We asked, the only way, the stipulations we, the yeah, but we asked, and the way, what was agreed to by the commission, Roger, what the commissioners wanted was that any request for water to go outside of their boundaries had to be requested by an outside jurisdiction, like another development or something else, and it all had to go through the county. Like if they wanted to, like if there was a development that went in next to them and they wanted water, which would be great. We initially asked for that, then we cut it back. It was a mess. And
A lot of people live farther away than that.
the county, no, CDS asked for it initially, that they would provide water for other subdivisions that may border it. Yes, and then it came back, and then based on all the citizen comments, we shut it down to where, and they didn't care, okay, whatever you want. Well, okay, so the only way they can export water out of their jurisdiction, their boundaries, is that it has to be requested from the outside. What? Let's go back to the initial. To the initial thing. I was there. Yeah, it's all in the. No, you guys, you don't have any of the initial development.
So would it be in the service agreement?
No, because the service agreement, the SIA wouldn't be in that.
Okay, we're going to
It was an agreement that was established, I think it was a condition. Crud, I was there.
If everybody will take their seats, please.
I think it was one of the conditions that we stated in the hearing. And Roger, my memory sucks.
Hey, my turn. Peter, I'll do it. Hey, folks, can we sit
I would
down,
like to have
please?
everybody take their seats.
Barely.
What is it with this?
Hey, folks, we're about to restart.
Let me see if this is better.
Roger?
Okay, we're going to restart the meeting here in a couple of minutes, so if everybody will take their seats, please.
50 ways from
For the initial approval.
with what they initially said they wanted, and then what they said.
In Bandera.
Yes. I mean, it was,
Well, I didn't know if there was a way up there or something. Okay.
and I was there, I know.
Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting now. We're going to open the hearing on the Independence 3 new and 3 amended metropolitan districts and service plans. So can we have the staff presentation, please?
Good evening, and thank you for that. This is the so-called Independence 3 new and 3 amended metropolitan districts and service plan cases SR 22-0046, 47, 49, 50, 51, and 52. This was originally scheduled to be heard on December 6th and was continued to the 17th and then continued due to weather to today. Branch again to the site. It's north of County Road 158 and east of Elbert Road. Zoning on the property is PUD. Arrow kind of shows the development of filing 1 in the southeast corner of the property. A little closer view of that. It also shows filings 2 and 3 that have already been platted, 1, 2, and 3. So the Planning Commission, again, is hearing this this evening on January 24th. The Board of County Commissioners, it was originally scheduled to be heard on January 25th. Oh, you know what? Excuse me for just a moment. We have one of our consultants I need to get into this conversation. Well, I'll get her in just a moment. And that's going to be continued to March 8th. So the Board of County Commissioners, it was advertised to January 25th. You're welcome to come tomorrow morning. It's just going to be continued again to March 8th. The applicant on this case is Jim Yates. The location again is northeast of County Road 158 and Delbert Road. The size of the site is roughly 112 acres. And yes, 1,012 acres. Thank you very much. So the request is Metropolitan District, which allows for the Planning Commission to review and a Board of County Commissioners to review as well. Again, what the applicants are interested in doing is amend 3 of their 4 existing metropolitan districts and create 3 new metropolitan districts. So right now on the property there are 4 metropolitan districts that exist. The 3 new metropolitan districts would include one that would be devoted to commercial development. A metropolitan district is a funding mechanism for development projects. It's not something that's a requirement to develop. It's one means to allow development to occur, and it's one that the applicants have proposed on the site. The PUD that you just heard, kind of shows the other planning areas that are identified. So to review this, the county code has about 1 page or so in our code that deals with metropolitan districts, and it basically references our review to state statutes. To address what the applicants have proposed, the county has hired experts to review that from a couple of different standpoints. One is one of our attorneys that we've hired to take a look at it from a statutory standpoint to make sure that it complies with the state statutes. And the other is from a finance standpoint. So we've hired a person to look at the financial impacts to future residents within the development and try to identify whether or not there'd be any major concerns that would come up based on that. I want to touch upon the review criteria here just quickly, and it comes right out of the Colorado Revised Statutes. What ultimately the Board of County Commissioners, who would be the decision makers in this, whether or not there's need for organized service in the area, whether the service in the area is currently inadequate, whether the proposed special district is providing economical and sufficient service, whether or not the special district has the financial ability to discharge the proposed indebtedness. The board may disapprove the service plan if evidence satisfactory to the board of any of the following is not presented: whether adequate service is not or will not be available, the facility and service standards of the proposed special district are compatible, the proposal is in substantial compliance with a master plan adopted pursuant to section 30-28-106 of Colorado Revised Statutes. The proposal is in compliance with any adopted long-range water quality management plan, and it's in the best interest of the area to propose to be served. With that, I'd like to introduce Graham Anderson of Anderson Analytics. He is going to offer a presentation on particularly the financing aspect, but it really delves into the what, why, and where with metropolitan districts. So give me a moment here and I will get out of this PowerPoint and into another. Okay. Is that on, Graham? Is the microphone on? Is it green?
There.
Can you guys?
Better, thank you.
All right. My name is Graham Anderson. I'm with Anderson Analytics. We're based in Colorado Springs. About 3/4 of our clients are local governments, and we provide consulting, negotiation, educational services in the fields of applied economics and public finance. Next slide. So really, I have two purposes for being here today. We were engaged by County CDS. One, to give the board really kind of a higher level educational overview of what's a metro district, why are they formed, and what roles can they play, particularly in the context of land use and planning policy. We were also engaged to do a review, particularly from the point of view of the financial plan of the proposed service plans and service plan amendments. We ran those through our financial models, our bond models, basically to kind of understand the dynamics of it. It becomes a living, breathing thing. And hopefully I can highlight some of the really high-level key concepts, what's going on with this proposal. Next. So basic definitions. What's metro district? A metropolitan district is a form of local government that's authorized under the Special District Act, which is Article 1 of Title 32 of the revised statutes. You'll often hear metro districts called Title 32 metro districts. And by statutory definition, a metro district is a special district that provides two or more of those services defined in statute: fire protection, parks and rec, transportation, water and sanitation, safety, street improvements, etc. There are also single service special districts under the Special District Act. Those are technically called general authority. Title 32 districts. Water and sanitation districts are an example. We have a water and sanitation district here with Independence Community. Fire protection districts, parks and rec districts, ambulance districts are other examples. Next. So as of the beginning of this year, there are just under 4,500 active local governments in the state of Colorado. So it's worthwhile to learn about metro districts because just under 50% of them, of all active local governments in Colorado, are metro districts. Just under 14% are also single service Title 32 districts. Metro districts began with the Special District Act of 1947. The oldest ones today go back to 1948. Pleasant View Metro District in Jefferson County would be an example going back to 1948. Just kind of context for timeline, about 180 active metro districts today were formed before 1980. Metro districts are often called special purpose quasi-municipal local governments. That term quasi-municipal is really descriptive here because in general they're formed to provide for a particular or a couple of particular municipal services or public improvements in lieu of or in coordination with cities, counties, and other local governments. Just due to the flexibility of their definition, there's a really wide diversity statewide of metro districts in terms of their size, their purpose, why were they formed, the different services they provide. A handful really nearly function as full-service municipalities. Pueblo West and Highlands Ranch would be examples. They really have pretty much everything except a police department. Some of them also provide regional improvements and services across different municipal and county boundaries. SpyMed in the South I-25 Metro Corridor would be an example. It helps fund improvements to I-25 and surrounding roadways. Next. Really, throughout history, going back to 1947, I would say one of the primary purposes for the formation of a metro district, as well as other Title 32 districts, has been to facilitate residential and commercial development by providing for necessary public improvements or services to that development or to that area. one of the most common ways they're used, particularly more so since about 1970, is to finance the construction of public infrastructure via the issuance of general obligation municipal bonds that are repaid by debt service mill levy, aka a property tax. I just want to highlight the term general obligation bonds just simply means it's backed by property taxes. Special revenue bonds are backed by sales taxes and fees and other things. So, of course, the special district financing has particular application to the development of residential subdivisions. It's also commonly used for multifamily, for commercial, even for industrial development. And often projects we're involved in, it's often a component of urban redevelopment projects, more complex economic development deals. Even some we've been involved in are projects delivering an affordable housing component. Next. So this is the process you're going through in a way right now, the formation and the amendment of a Metro District Service Plan. So this is defined, this entire process, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, is defined in Title 32, but I just really wanted to highlight that the service plan is the governing document for the Metro District. It's like a municipal charter. I know the term service plan kind of sounds a little bit weird, but it's really the governing charter for that local government. Certainly for every Title 32 district, the process of service plan review and approval by the governing board of the relevant city or county is important, but it's particularly crucial for the process and for the oversight of developer-established metro districts. It's really the key check or balance on the system there. And of course, the reason why we're here, major amendments to existing service plans are also subject to the review and approval of the governing board of the municipality or the county. Next. Financial powers of Metro District. I'm just going to talk about what's allowed under state law first. Most Metro District service plans, they define specific powers from statute, or they add in other restrictions, but just in general, statute allows a metropolitan district to levy a property tax, a mill levy. They can issue bonds or other forms of debt or contractual obligations. They can enter into agreements with other governments, financial and operational. Finally, they can establish fees, rates, tolls, penalties, and charges for service or facilities, which I really want to highlight on this last point, fees and rates and tolls, that's not a limitless power, just like all other governmental entities in Colorado. It's subject to the standards, the requirements for fees established in the state constitution by the Supreme Court regarding their justification, the use, and the proportionality of the fees in relation to the services provided.
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't hear you. I didn't hear the last part.
Okay. I particularly wanted to note that fees, rates, tolls, charges for service is not a limitless power, just like every other local government in Colorado. It's subject to the same standards established by the Colorado Supreme Court and our state constitution in regard to the justification, the use, and the proportionality of the fees in relation to the services of the facilities provided.
And the federal government, right?
Well, yeah, do we have legal counsel who wants to address that?
Go ahead. You should be able to just go ahead and make this presentation
All right.
without interruption.
All right, okay. This is just an educational point here. This is not proposed or contemplated or established with independence districts, but Title 32 also authorizes metro districts located specifically in unincorporated areas some unique financial powers. One of them, under certain circumstances, and it depends on the specific services provided by the district, but it can establish and collect a sales tax. It's very uncommon. There are only 13 metro districts statewide that have a sales tax. Next. Of course, like all other governments in Colorado, taxes and debt established by Metro District are subject to voter approval. But of course, why this process is really important is that if it's a developer-formed district, those Tabor questions typically occur before development occurs in that district. It's also common for developer established metro districts to waive their Tabor limit for purposes of revenue retention, as well as to override the 5.5 property tax growth limit. And finally, as I alluded to before, Metro District service plans typically include specific limits or restrictions on its financial powers. Almost universally for developer-established districts includes two primary things. The service plan debt limit, which is the maximum amount of debt, bonds that the district is authorized to issue. Second of all, they almost universally establish a mill levy cap, which is the maximum property tax that that district is authorized to levy. So we've highlighted here for your consideration, hopefully a little bit of education, some key considerations for what metro district financing can be used as a tool in the context of planning and land use policy. I'll start with the second point because this really underlies a lot of it. They're typically utilized to finance major capital improvement needs that would otherwise render a project unfeasible, financially unfeasible, physically, legally, otherwise unfeasible. They're also often utilized to build neighborhoods with what one might call robust public infrastructure and quality public amenities. It can help make the numbers work in terms of providing open space, neighborhood parks. There really is some truth in this. You'll hear a lot of realtors say in Colorado, you just have to look around and you know whether or not you're in a metro district community. Additionally, it can be used to finance improvements on-site or off-site to mitigate impacts related to that project. Traffic and stormwater are often common impacts. Of course, another key concept, it shifts the burden of constructing, maintaining, operating public improvements from city or county government and the general taxpayers thereof. And then finally, it can serve to provide services not already provided in that area. Fiscal and economic policy considerations. Got two key concepts here. One of them, I alluded to this before. When you have a metro district that's financing the improvements within that district, it's the property owners, current as well as the future property owners in that district that end up funding those improvements rather than taxpayers elsewhere in the city or the county. Proponents often will say that this is part of the development paying its own way concept. Now, of course, that often means that metro district communities, particularly those with debt service levy, typically have higher property taxes than non-metro district communities, sometimes substantially higher property taxes. That can have implications for housing affordability. Property tax, when you qualify for a mortgage, is part of the calculation, so it's a direct impact on housing affordability. Then particularly if you have a high demand rental market, commercial or residential, those property tax costs can be passed on to the renters. Also be policy implications for other local governments. This is often referred to as the crowding out effect. But if your residents already have high property taxes, other local governments, the county, school district, library district, et cetera, if they wish and need to go to the voters for a tax or debt or other type of ballot question, they can sometimes face greater political difficulty in doing that. And then just broadly high level, facilitating commercial development that has implications for the county sales tax base. as well as economic development and jobs closer to home. And then certainly in the context of the Front Range and Colorado housing market over the past decade and the past few years, it can be about delivering new housing supply. So in Elbert County, as of the beginning of this year, there were 71 different active local governments, including the county. 23 of those were active metropolitan districts serving several residential and commercial communities. Some instances, there are multiple districts, like in the case of Independence, serving the same community, though. Just to give a little bit of context in terms of property tax load, and I'll illustrate a little bit later what these mill levies mean in terms of actual property tax. But in tax year 2021, which means payable last year in 2022, if I say tax year, it means it's payable the next year. Elbert County's average weighted mill levy countywide amongst all existing properties was just about equal to the statewide average at 83.7 mills. Looking at your neighbors, Douglas County was third highest in the state at 101 mills. Arapahoe County was the fourth highest at 97 mills. El Paso County is lower, although that's been going up quite a bit over the past 10 years. Just for context, Broomfield and Adams County are the highest. In part, this is due to the utilization of special district financing, although if you look at the numbers, it's really the school district mill levies in those counties that are driving the mill levy differential here. Now, I'm not going to run through all of this, but I wanted to highlight the mill levies in all of the existing or under development metro district communities in Elbert County. These are the residential communities. You can see it ranges from about 170 mills down to 133 mills. All of these except Brittany Ridge have a debt service levy. Brittany Ridge, I believe, is just an operating levy. And the Independence community right now is kind of right in the middle at 160 mills. Elbert County also has two commercial areas that are served by metro districts. Summit Park Metro District, which I believe was amended a year or two ago. They have 35 mills that's used for financing water improvements in the Prairie View Industrial Park. Then the Walmart over in, or next to Elizabeth, that's an example of a more complex economic development deal. They have a metro district that has 5 mills just for operations, but I believe the metro district serves as the bond issuer, which is backed by retail sales from the Walmart by a public improvement fee. So just a little history on the Independence districts. The existing districts were formed in 2017. Districts number 1 through 4 are called the infrastructure districts. You'll see that term in the service plans. Districts 2 through 4 are being proposed for amendment. There's also the water and sanitation district that issued bonds in 2019, 22.27 million in bonds. Those are backed by tap fees. That district also has water and sewage service charges that are used for maintenance and operations. And the water and sanitation district has no mill levy, and that service plan is not being proposed for amendment. Second of all, there's the overlay district. That's a metropolitan district as well. It was really formed in lieu of an HOA. Every other metro district community in Elbert County has an HOA. But instead of this, and this is really a rather unique application of metro districts, which I find quite intriguing, certainly in the context of some of the concerns regarding HOAs. It was formed to perform landscape maintenance, garbage service, covenant enforcement, and design review. It has 15 mills that are authorized, and again, that service plan is not being proposed for amendment. So I mentioned before the Independence communities. This is the tax year 2022 certified mill levy. So those will be the property taxes paid this year based off of the valuations last year. total of just under 160 mills, no HOA fee. And so at the bottom, I kind of stepped you through how you would calculate the property tax payment there. Say you have a home that the assessor says has a market value of $600,000. The assessment rate, this is established by statute. For this year, it's going to be 6.95%. In the past, it's been 7.15%, and it's gone down over time, previously because of the Gallagher Amendment, et cetera, but it's 6.95%. Next year, it'll be 6.765%. So you take the market value, you multiply it by the assessment rate, and that equals what's called the assessed value. You take the assessed value, you multiply it by the number of mills, and you divide that by 1,000, because a mill is $1 per $1,000 in valuation. And so for a $600,000 market value home there, it equals property tax payment of $6,671. So in our review of the financial plans and the service plans, really there were 3 points that I wanted to highlight here. This is kind of the proposal in a nutshell. The first one is that it proposes to create 3 additional metro districts to accommodate future project and bond issuance phasing. The second point is not a change, but I really want to highlight it. There's no change in the mill levy authorization from what's already authorized in the existing service plans for number 1 through number 4. And for the new districts proposed 5, 6, and commercial, it's going to utilize the same mill levy authorization. So that's not a decision point here, really. And then finally, it proposes to increase the debt authorization, service plan debt authorization amount of the districts in aggregate. The original financial plan in 2017 anticipated a build out of 920 homes. The proposed financial plan anticipates 1,367 homes, plus 50,000 square feet of retail. Second point as to why that authorization amount would be proposed to be increased is that home values today are substantially higher than what was anticipated in the original financial plan. It's not that they did the original financial plan wrong, it's just we've had rather extraordinary housing market conditions over the past couple of years. And then finally, the proposed financial plans effectively propose to extend the anticipated bonding term via what's called refunding and new money bonds, which I'll get to in a minute, from 30 years to 40 years. So you're probably wondering, why would you form multiple metro districts and Title 32 districts to serve the same community? It's actually fairly common in Colorado, particularly if you have a bigger project or one that has different uses or one that's going to be built out in different phases. In general, it's done to issue multiple series of bonds to coincide with different development phases, and or this all kind of works in conjunction to pledge different components of a development or different revenue streams from that development to different bond series. So for example, you could have bond investors who say we want to invest in commercial, or bond investors who say we want to invest in property tax, or we want to invest in water tap fees, things like that. It's basically an organizational tool from that perspective. And then finally, it gives flexibility both to the districts as well as to the developer to really adjust or respond the project phasing in response to market conditions. Market conditions can be interest rates, real estate market conditions. Really allows them the flexibility to go forward with different phases of the project and issue bonds at the right time, just depending upon future market conditions. For example, a project might need to be phased out longer than is originally anticipated. So the existing service plan debt authorization amount for districts 1 through 4 in aggregate. This is the existing debt authorization amount for the service plans established in 2017. In aggregate, it's $41.84 million. Districts 1 through 3 have in aggregate issued $38.43 million in bonds. District 4 did not participate in those bond issuances, so the existing districts are pretty close to their existing debt authorization amount already. The proposed debt service, proposed service plan debt authorization amount, again, no amendment to District Number 1. Its infrastructure has been completed. It will not participate in any new debt. The amended service plan debt authorization amount for Districts 2 through 3 is $22.565 million. That's in addition to the $38 million plus that's already been issued to date. So basically that means that Districts 2 through 3 could issue an additional up to $22.565 million in bonds. Additionally, it proposes that for Districts 4 through 6 in commercial, in aggregate, a service plan debt authorization amount of just under $68.3 million. There's logic to that number, which I'll hopefully get to in just a second. And so if you add all of that together, the additional service plan debt authorization that's being proposed is $90.8 million, in addition to the $38.43 million in bonds issued to date. The proposed service plans also update the estimated cost of improvements, public improvements for the project. I believe this includes the water and sanitation district improvements as well. But in 2017, it was just under $184 million. That's been updated to $213 million. Now, next slide, you'll note that $213 million is a fair bit higher than $90.8 million. So I just wanted to highlight and quote from the service plans that improvements that are not funded by the infrastructure districts, meaning improvements not funded by bonds issued by those districts, shall remain the responsibility of the developer. And additionally, the county is not responsible for assuming any of the costs for the design, construction, et cetera, of the public improvements. This is already established in the existing service plans as well. The mill levy authorization and the mill levy cap, again, I'm going to say this again, but there's no proposed change in the total mill levy cap for districts 2 through 4 and 5, 6 in commercial, proposed to utilize the same authorization amount. So what is it? This is a little bit technical, and I hope I can kind of step through this a little bit. But basically, the service plan says that the total mill levy cap is 65 mills, adjusted for legislative changes in the method of calculating assessed value since 2016. Now, this is a common, and it's pretty much a universal feature of metro districts and other local governments that issue bonds. The reason for this, and again, it's a rather complicated concept, but over the past 40 plus years, the residential assessment rate in Colorado has gone down over time due to the Gallagher Amendment. Of course, the Gallagher Amendment was repealed a couple of years ago, and now assessment rates are basically in the hands of the General Assembly. There have been ballot proposals as well to change assessment rates. The term that we kind of use is that it's basically a floating mill levy. So if you adjust the assessment rate, the mill levy is still proportional in terms of its property tax load over time. Really what gets built into that over time is that if the market value, the actual market value of the property goes up, then the property tax payment goes up in proportion to that. But it doesn't go up in proportion or down in proportion to the assessment rates. So just an example, again, 6.95% residential assessment rate this year. So you take 65 mills, it was 7.96 in 2016. You make that adjustment, that equals 74.446 mills. You'll see 71.23 mills used in the service plan language, again, because this is a very fluid topics. Sometimes there are different numbers, but basically that means, or it's comprised of 10 unadjusted mills plus 55 adjusted debt service mills to a residential assessment rate of 7.15, which is 61.23 mills. I hope that kind of makes sense. So as Mr. Thompson alluded to, one of the standards for review, this is really the one that we focus on from the financial point of view, is this question: does the financial plan demonstrate that the district or districts have the projected financial capacity to issue and fully defease, pay off the full service plan debt authorization amount? Why do you ask that? I mean, same question you would ask for a private company or anything like that. It's so that a district doesn't potentially over-leverage itself. Now, of course, a financial plan is not, financial plan is a projection. It's a financial as well as an economic projection. And so I really wanted to step through here for you. What are kind of the key driving variables and assumptions that we always look for in a service plan, financial plan, because these are the things that really underlie ultimately the financing capacity of those districts. There are two sides here. One of them is the revenue side, the revenues available for debt service, so that's the property tax revenues here. That's really driven, first of all, by the development schedule, the absorption and build-out schedule. I've got a table for you in a second. It's also driven by the projected property values for the homes and other development there. Does the plan assume any inflation in property values over time? We all know that property values do tend to go up over time. And then anticipated mill levy, when and how long. The other side are the bond or whatever other type of debt is being used, but bonds in this instance. What are the financing assumptions there? Interest rate, bond structure, which basically means what's the repayment schedule, what are the repayment terms for that debt instrument? Does it include or what type of debt service coverage ratio is underwritten or assumed in that financial plan? Debt service coverage ratio basically means you compare the debt service payment that you have annually to the revenues that you have. So say I owe $1 million on bonds this year and I have $1 million in revenues, I have a debt service coverage ratio of 1.0 times. Now if I have $1.3 million in revenues and I have a debt service payment of $1 million, that's a debt service coverage ratio of 1.3 times. It's a really important variable in these financial plans. Additionally, do the bonds have any anticipated reserve fund requirements? Are the issuance costs reasonable? And what's the timing and phasing of the bonds? Next. So I've divided this out into two tables because really the financial plan has two components. One of them is districts 1 through 3. The other component is districts 4 through 6 in commercial. So up here is the anticipated build-out schedule as well as the anticipated property values for districts 1 through 3 and the proposed financial plans. As you can see, that District 1 is anticipated to be built out this year. It anticipates that District 2 will deliver just under 370 housing units in 2023 as well, and about 140 units in 2024. And these market values are tax year 2022, and the financial plan has a pretty conservative adjustment for those values until those units are delivered. This is districts 4 through 6. The financial plans anticipate that these districts will deliver 178 units in 2025 and 353 units in 2026, as well as that it will deliver 50,000 square feet of retail space in 2026. Yep. Awesome. So I mentioned this before, assumed inflation and property values. This is a typical key underwriting feature here. The proposed financial plan assumes that the residential property values will go up by 6% every 2 years. Because we have biennial reassessment, the assessor revalues properties every 2 years. I have a next slide as to what 6% looks like in terms of historical data. But in the bond market since 2019, it's become a lot more common for residential special district bonds to be underwritten with 6% biennial inflation. So 6% equates to just under 3% every year. You can see that in the table at the top. It's 2.96%. And this is the annual appreciation in the all transactions house price index for Elbert County going back as far as it goes back. You see over the past 10 years. This does not include 2021. That data is not out yet, and I can guarantee you the 2021 data is going to be 20 to 30%. But in the past 10 years, excluding that, it's of course been quite a bit higher over that 2.96% hurdle. 20 years, which includes the Great Recession as well as the recovery from that, is also over the 2.96%. So you can kind of see why municipal bonds have been increasingly underwritten with 6% biennial inflation. On the commercial side, it assumes 2% biennial inflation. Again, in the context of long-term consumer price index inflation, that's pretty conservative, but that's pretty much the universal underwriting standard. It gives a good bit of safety to bond investors. So refunding a new money bonds, key concept here. Well, first of all, it's very common for metro districts, and it's common for all sorts of local governments in Colorado to refund their bonds to take advantage of lower interest rates for a variety of reasons. Commonly for metro districts, if they've issued bonds at the beginning of a project's construction, those typically have higher interest rates, and so once that project's built out and completed, the developments in the ground, those revenues are proven. Those are often refunded at a lower interest rate. Oftentimes those bonds have a rating, and it kind of behaves more like a school district bond rather than an unrated special district bond. So refunding bonds can do a variety of things. It can lower the required mill levy. It can shorten the period of time to repay the debt. And then finally, mainly as it's utilized in the proposed financial plan, it can free up financing capacity, really meaning revenues from the district, to issue additional new money bonds to generate additional proceeds for eligible costs. A combination of variables can drive the amount of new money bonds that can be issued in conjunction with the refunding. One of them is the interest rate advantage. If you have a bigger interest rate advantage, you can drive more financing capacity, more new money proceeds. Another one is that if you extending the bonding term, for example, if you refund a 30-year bond 10 years in with another 30-year bond, you have a 40-year financing period, and that can support additional proceeds. Then finally, if a project's overperformed its original projected revenues, this last point, of course, properly is not assumed in the financial plans, but again, going back to a 6% biennial inflation, that's always a possibility. So the proposed financial plan itself, we really reduced it into 3 or 4 steps. So step 1A and step 1B. Step 1A are districts 1 through 3. Remember, District 1 is not being amended, so it cannot participate in any new money debt, but it can refund its existing bonds as long as there are no more new money proceeds. So the financial plans anticipate in 2029 the existing bond series will be refunded for a final maturity of 2059. The existing bonds have a final maturity of 2049. And then there's a component 1B, which is just districts 2 through 3. They're also going to issue a new money bond series that's just districts 2 through 3. Financial plan anticipates and demonstrates that the par amount of those bonds will be $22.565 million. Issuance costs anticipated up there are reasonable and in line with market conditions and norms. That yields net proceeds of about $22.25 million. The $22.565 million is equal to the par, it's equal to the service plan debt authorization amount in the amendments. I just wanted to run through here the financing assumptions on those bonds. It assumes that they're investment grade, which means that they're rated bonds. That's a reasonable assumption because in 2029, when these bonds are issued, the project is anticipated to be fully developed in place, the revenues proven. Thus, it assumes a 4% annual interest rate, which is pretty consistent with historical refunding bonds for special districts in Colorado. Again, I said 2059 final maturity. It does size it with 1.0 times annual debt service coverage. It could be 1.05 times, but one thing I would highlight here is that the financial plans anticipate that District 1, its mill levy, debt service mill levy will be just about 32 mills from 29 to 2059. Then Districts 2 through 3 will basically be up at its maximum debt service mill levy with 10 mills for operations. So part 2 is Districts 4 through 6 and commercial. This is a new money issuance. The financial plans anticipate that in 2025, which is really in the midst of the anticipated development of that phase of the project, that unrated bonds will be issued again, really in the middle of the construction of that phase. The par amount of $42.385 million. They do assume a debt service reserve fund, so that's safety for those bonds. Issuance costs up there as well. Again, underwriter's discount, legal, et cetera. Net proceeds of $37.4 million. And a final maturity of 2055. This $42.385 million counts towards the proposed debt service, or the proposed service plan debt authorization amount of $68.3 million. Then there's part 2 here, which anticipates another refunding and new money series. In this instance, it's basically all one bond issuance here. But the outstanding bonds will be, sorry, I got myself a little turned around here, but the outstanding bonds will, sorry, could you go? Actually, next one, sorry. Sorry, I got myself turned around here, but this is the part 3. It also anticipates that previous bond series will be refunded in new money, which will yield another $25.9 million in net proceeds, and that net proceeds from the refunding of new money counts towards the debt service authorization amount. Actually, if you could go back here one slide. This is what I wanted to highlight here for part 2 for the new money bonds. It assumes a 5% annual interest rate. It does size it with 1.05 times coverage, and it assumes pretty much the maximum debt service mill levy with 10 mills left over for operations. At the bottom here, I wanted to highlight what 55 mills would equate here for the commercial component. They anticipate the commercial retail will have a market value of $350 a square foot. So if you apply 55 mills to that 29% commercial assessment rate, that works out to $5.58 per square foot in property tax. And with the total mill levy excluding the overlay district, that's $14.71 in property tax per square foot. I have just a couple of quick observations about the 2025 bonds for districts 4 through 6. You know, in the bond market, senior unrated bonds that are issued prior, sometimes during the very beginning of construction, are typically underwritten with greater coverage than 1.0 times. We typically observe 1.2 to 1.4 times. But there are two other concepts here that I really wanted to highlight. One, this isn't a new project. There's development momentum here, and so it's really a second phase that's anticipated for it. And second of all, the financial plan anticipates a bond issuance date of December of 2025, I believe, which if you go back and look at the anticipated build-out schedule, would be really right in the middle of the construction. And so potentially if there are contracts in place for the rest of the construction, et cetera, those bonds could feature a rating. And so, you know, having a more aggressive debt service coverage ratio there is probably appropriate. 5%, again, is kind of the same context. You know, from 2020 to early 2022, there's historic low interest rates, really high demand for these special district bonds, especially housing development. You know, this could have been 4.5, even 4% bond issuance during that period of time. Over the last quarter of this year, we've been seeing unrated special district bonds about 6 to 7% if they're 30-year bonds. But again, over the past year, we've seen a heck of a lot of volatility and a lot of uncertainty in the special district bond market. Let's see if we can go over to slide 42. This is the second to last component that I have here. The proposed financial plans also anticipate an operational mill levy for districts 1 through 6 and commercial. Just quoting from the service plan, indicates an operational mill levy of 10 mills, which is included in the mill levy cap, is estimated to be sufficient to operate and maintain the districts. Just putting that into context, the financial plans project that in 2028, which is really the first year that the project will be fully built out and revenues, property tax revenues stabilized, that would equal all districts combined just under $824,000 in operational mill levy revenues to all of those districts. And then finally, my last component here, and I appreciate you guys listening to me. We've put up a matrix here regarding the anticipated plan of ownership and maintenance of the improvements to be funded and provided by the districts. Street improvements, traffic, storm drainage improvements are anticipated to be dedicated to the county and maintained by the county. Retention and detention ponds, perhaps the applicant can, if this is relevant, could clarify this more. I'm not sure if detention ponds are going to be owned by the county or the districts, but they do anticipate that they'll be maintained by districts 1 through 6 and commercial. Of course, the water and sanitation district improvements are owned and maintained by the Water and Sanitation District. And then the overlay district is anticipated to own and maintain the park and recreation improvements in the districts. Then finally, here on this last slide, if you guys have a print copy of this or anything like this, I just wanted to highlight some educational resources for the board. The first one is about municipal bonds. MSRB, the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, is kind of like the SEC for municipal securities. On their website, they really have a good educational center there for issuers as well as potential investors, but it's really good for issuers. And then EMA, Electronic Municipal Market Access, is basically the repository of all municipal bond offering statements, trade activities, ongoing disclosures, et cetera. And so if you want to look up bonds issued by any district, you can look it up by the governmental name. You can follow trade activity, et cetera. DOLA also has a database of all active local governments in Colorado. It's really this is where we go to every day. It has budgets, service plans, maps, financial notices, et cetera. Office of the State Auditor is actually, it's a little bit complicated, but they've switched over the certified annual financial statements for local governments into this different database. So if you're looking for them, it's in that other database. And then finally, Legislative Council, which is the nonpartisan research organization for the Colorado General Assembly. They have a really good local government handbook. It's really written more for state legislators, but it's something even that we refer to really on a weekly basis. And so that's the link to it. So I appreciate you guys listening to me for all of this time. If you have any questions or whatnot, I'm available.
One question for you. So in your professional opinion, you're recommending that these metrodistricts are done properly and according to the county standards, the state standards? According to your professional opinion, the metrodistricts are sufficient, okay, and fit the criteria for the county and the state. And
One, I want to say that I'm not legal counsel, and so I'm going to be very careful about what I say from the legal point of view. From the financial point of view, I would say it's certainly consistent with what we see with other service plan proposals, and really consistent with what we see with bond issuances, metro districts that have been successful with that. That's really what I would say. Now from the approval, statutory approval criteria, I'm not sure if Kim's on the phone or if the applicant.
Then one other question. In looking at what you got there, you're talking about the build-out rate. And currently with the interest rates and everything that are going up and the slowdown that we've seen in a lot of places, how does that affect this particular financial plan?
Yeah. First of all, what I'll say about the build-out plan is that localized experience is probably a lot better than my experience here. Now, if bonds are issued, those bonds will be issued with an offering statement that's 500 pages long. And about 100 to 200 of those pages will be a market study supporting the absorption, build-out, and the property market values. In this instance, for example, if there's a longer build-out here, I believe this is one of the reasons why there are additional districts proposed. Basically, the bond phasing or the bond issuances could be phased out. There could be additional smaller bond series, basically in response to market conditions. Does that kind of make sense? There's also another source of revenues here. I'm not sure if this is in specific response to your question, but it's called facility service fees. The financial plan anticipates that every time a home is delivered by the home builder will pay a fee of, I believe it's $7,100. Basically, that serves to help cover debt service in the beginning years before property taxes kick in. Another reason why you would have a surplus in those early years sized, particularly if you have a longer build out, although we don't necessarily have a longer build out here, is so that surplus is available to basically cover coverage in later years, if that kind of makes sense. No, it's really, I'll say the financial plan, the bonds in the financial plan, in comparison to some other bonds that are actually issued, it's a lot more stable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I might just kind of finish up with the staff recommendation and remind you again what the criteria is for this. It's out of the Colorado Revised Statute 32-1-2032, whether there's a need for organized service, the service is currently inadequate, if it's economical and sufficient, if they have the financial ability to discharge the debt, whether or not the adequate service is not available, the standards are compatible, if there's a master plan that's been adopted, long-range water quality management plan, and it's in the best interest of the area. Graham, thank you very much for that presentation. Staff's recommendation based on the financial information that we've received from Graham, and then Kim Crawford as well, who reviewed it from a legal standpoint, is approval of the requested metro districts. The applicant is here as well, and they'd like to present to you their thoughts on it as well.
Okay. Does the applicant have any further information that you'd like to present?
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes, we do have a presentation as well. And I want to thank Mr. Anderson. His presentation was so thorough. I just hope there's not a quiz at the end of it. I'll be in trouble. Tonight, let me go to the next slide so you know who is presenting for you tonight. Diane Miller, that's me with Miller Law. My address is on the thing. Do you need it stated for the record?
Go ahead.
1555 California Street, number 505 in Denver. Also with me tonight, Jim Yates from Kraft Companies, Lacey Knowles, who is the managing director of D.A. Davidson, and Tim Morzell, also from D.A. Davidson. D.A. Davidson is the company that put together the financing plans for the service plans. Next slide, please. One of the things that Mr. Anderson hit on is that one of the big concepts we have here in Colorado is that growth pays its own way, that we do not expect people outside of a new development to pay for that new development. Oftentimes there is no other public entity able to fund improvements. And one of the other things that's important to remember is that when we use public financing, the issuance of bonds, through the public finance, we reduce the cost of public improvements through access to tax-exempt financing. So rather than front-loading those costs on a new home, the use of bonds for a district provides a proportionate impact, meaning that the cost is spread over a 30-year period. And property owners are only paying their share of those taxes while they live in the community. We know in Colorado that the average homeowner sells their house every 7 years. A lot of movement here in Colorado, apparently. And so you may pay taxes if you live in Independence for 7 years, and then if you get sent to Kansas or somewhere for your job, you're no longer responsible for that. But the most important thing is that taxpayers outside this new development do not contribute taxes. Growth pays its own way. Next slide. One of the things that we want to point out is that districts can almost never pay the full cost of public improvements. It's just much too expensive these days to put all of this infrastructure in place. So on this slide, you can see that we have an estimated cost of public improvements, and we're talking streets and water and sewer, storm drainage, park and rec, the amenities, all those things we're estimating at $212 million. The debt limit of the districts is $129 million. So you can see there's quite a difference there between the 212 and the 129. The remainder of that cost is the responsibility of the developer and not of the districts and not of the taxpayers in the districts. Also, it's important to remind you the county is not responsible for the cost of public improvements. For any district, it's all paid either by the district or by the developer. Next slide. One of the things that we heard is maybe a concern with regard to the use of districts and district financing is whether that money can be misappropriated or misused in some way. So when bonds are issued, neither the developer nor the district have unfettered access to those funds. The bonds are issued and the money goes directly to a trustee, a bank that is specialized in holding these kind of funds from bonds. And for example, the existing Independence bonds are held by UMB Bank as trustee for the bonds. Before funds are released to the district has to have a third-party independent engineer firm review all the invoices and certify that the costs are appropriate, and they verify also that all the work was completed as shown in the application for the funds. The district then will create a fund request to the trustee detailing the purpose for the funds it's asking to be released. Typically, it is to pay construction costs, but funds can also be requested to pay fees, permits, engineering costs, or other costs eligible to be reimbursed to the district. But developer profit is not an eligible cost to be paid from bond funds. Quarterly also, the district must complete a continuing disclosure report, which is sent both to the trustee and to the owners of the bonds. And this disclosure is also filed with EMA, the Electronic Municipal Market Access of the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. Mr. Anderson referred to that. It's a public website. You can get on EMA at msrb.org. You type in Independence, those bonds will come up. You can look at all the bond documents. You can look at the quarterly reports. And so that information is available publicly and probably most importantly to the owners of the bonds so that they know how those funds are being used. Next slide. There are also additional safeguards, not all of them financial, but it's meant to make sure that special districts are open and transparent. There's a disclosure notice to a purchaser that is required under statute. We, in the service plan, commit to providing an annual report to the county that details pretty much everything the district has been doing for the past year. Provides the audit, provides the budget, provides those continuing disclosure reports, tells you if property's been included or excluded. Have we entered into any intergovernmental agreements? And what infrastructure have we actually completed? And that you can find all of that in the annual report that's filed with the county. There are also website disclosures that have to be done now. Starting January 1 of this year, every metropolitan district in Colorado has to have a website. And that website has to include all the notices, like if there's going to be a budget hearing, that notice has to go up on the website. It has to have all of the most important documents and records of the district, minutes of meetings, budgets, audits, and some intergovernmental agreements. There has to be contact information. Who do I contact if I have questions about this district? And it has to have debt information, meaning has the district issued debt? How much debt can it issue? How much mills can it impose on an annual basis for property taxes? And it has to have election information. District board members are elected on a rolling basis. There are 5 board members usually, and we have 2 that are elected 1 year and 3 that will be elected 2 years later. So it's, you know, we don't have the whole board usually being elected at once. That election information, what seats are available, when the election occurs, all of that has to be up on the website. Colorado also has sunshine laws that mandate open meetings for all local governments and require regular elections for all local governments, and special districts are certainly required to participate in that. Next slide. So as you heard from Mr. Anderson, tonight we're presenting amended and restated service plans for districts 2, 3, and 4 only. The overlay district and the water and sand district are not amending their service plans, and District 1 is also not amending its service plan. District 1 has completed its public infrastructure obligations and will not issue any additional bonds. Next slide. In 2018, 6 districts were approved for the independence development. Districts 1 through 4 as metropolitan districts, the overlay district, which acts in lieu of an HOA, and which will, as build-out occurs in independence, will have a board member from each of the residential districts. And then the water and sand district, which provides water and sanitary sewer facilities and services. Based on something Mr. Anderson said, this water and sand district may also be the district that takes on the responsibility for storm drainage, detention, retention, or it may remain with one of the metropolitan districts. Next slide. Our request tonight is that you approve the amendments to the 3 existing service plans and that you approve the 3 new service plans, districts 5 and 6, and the commercial district. Next slide. There are 3 new districts that are being proposed. 5 and 6 will be for residential, and the commercial will only include commercial development. As Mr. Anderson pointed out, what has happened here is that as we look back at the original service plans that were provided and approved for the district, we now see a more extensive development phasing that would make the additional districts appropriate for financing for this development. Next slide. I want to point out that districts are not drivers of development. They respond to development when it's occurring. And in this case, the development is the amended PUD amendment that's in process right now. And it was through looking at that process that the decision was made that some additional districts would be helpful for the overall development. And I'm not going to focus on the PUD amendment because you guys have done that at length. Next slide. So we can probably skip over this except to say that the PUD amendment does provide Elbert County with additional services, amendments, revenue, employment, diversity of housing. There was a lot of discussion about road infrastructure, and that Independence remains a development that is really using responsible water conservation as new homes take advantage of the water conservation efforts that were designed into the water and sand facilities for Independence. Next slide. The amended service plans, which is districts 2 and 3, have no development in them at this time. There are no homes, there's no commercial development. The property within the boundaries of District 2 is about to begin development. And at full build out, the Independence development will contain approximately 1,400 residential units and 42,500 square feet of commercial, assuming that the PUD amendment is finally approved. Next slide. In the service plans, Exhibit D sets forth the engineer's estimate of cost. Each of the districts will contribute to the overall cost according to its financial ability, and that ability is based on the number of units, the price of those units, the amount of commercial square feet, and the value of the developed property. As we've already said, $212 million of public improvements is anticipated. And I also want to point out that this cost estimate does not include private improvement costs. Overlot grading, electrical infrastructure, gas infrastructure, wet utilities, serving individual lots. That is private improvement costs not paid for by the districts. Next slide. The districts pretty much are authorized to construct any public infrastructure needed for the development. And the reason that we build that kind of flexibility into these districts is because we lack a crystal ball. And we don't know, as development phasing progresses, which district is going to be best to build some of this infrastructure, or really the phasing of some of the infrastructure can change. And so by allowing any of the districts to construct the infrastructure, we're creating the most flexible development and financing situation for the development. Next slide. The county will take ownership and maintenance of the streets. The overlay district will own and operate park and rec, the cultural and the recreation amenities, and the open space within Independence. The metropolitan district will maintain storm drainage, or the overlay district may end up maintaining the storm drainage. And the water and sand district will own and operate all potable and non-potable water facilities and all sanitary sewer facilities. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lacey, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about financing.
Thanks, Diane. And Lacey Knowles from D.A. Davidson. It's a pleasure to be before you this evening. We're the bond underwriter for the first bond transaction that was issued through District Number 3. And as Diane mentioned, we also prepared all the financing plans that you guys have reviewed, hopefully in your packets. Happy to answer any questions about that at the appropriate time. Also want to compliment Mr. Anderson for doing a truly fantastic job presenting these numbers. I want to reiterate just a couple of points. You're probably numbers blind at this point, so I may not need to go over the specific debt increases that are being requested for each of the districts. A couple of things to note, though, relative to the $22.5 million and the $68.2 million, is that once a district issues debt, so for example, if District 2 issued $10 million in bonds, that $22.565 million limit reduces to $12.565. So you don't get to double dip. Once it's gone until the district has completed all of its new money transactions. Typically, our goal for districts in the bonding life cycle of a district is that when infrastructure capital is needed the most at early stages of development, we will come in, help raise that capital. And then as soon as the credit quality improves, meaning that the district has been, development within the district has been completed, and we have established levels of assessed value, we will come back in and refinance that debt. Oftentimes that does one of two things. It either lowers the mill levy that's in place, or it can raise new money to fund additional public infrastructure. So just some high-level points on the way that a bonding life cycle of a district works. One other thing to note is that we're not asking for any increase in the mill levy here. The districts that are being requested to be approved, the new districts, have the exact mill levy that's already authorized for districts numbers 1 through 3. And a couple of points that are not on this page, and Mr. Anderson made a few of them in his presentation, but I'd like to just reiterate the financial protections that are in place for the residents in existing districts 1 through 3 and the residents that will occupy the districts that are asking to be approved if they are approved, is that we have a service plan debt limit, meaning that these districts can never bond in excess of the amounts that you see here. There's a maximum mill levy, meaning that mills can never be greater than the mills that are authorized in the service plan. And I think a really critical component here that isn't, I don't know if it's necessarily in this presentation or maybe in a later slide, but I'd like to make the point now, is that each of these service plans contains what we call a debt service mill levy imposition term. And that's a really fancy way of saying you only get 40 years of a debt service mill levy. And so what we tell our investors that purchase these bonds is that if these bonds have not been repaid within 40 years, and by the way, they're sized to pay within 30 years, that's a typical kind of bond term. If they're not paid back within 40 years because development was a little slower, or the market valuations weren't what the market study said at the time we bonded, then that debt is forever discharged, terminated, forgiven. They get no more bite at the apple. So the 40 years is a real thing, and we sell those bonds structured that way, such that it's a protection for the residents of this district that they will not pay a debt service mill levy for longer than 40 years. So when you see all of these debt service mill levy comps and those kind of the comps that Mr. Anderson had in his slide, that really assumes that that debt service mill levy is being imposed for that 40-year term. And at the end of that 40-year term, that debt service mill levy will go to zero. One other constraint that is a little harder to quantify is that even though we have these bonding amounts set forth here, occasionally, given market conditions that are in place at the time we bond, that sort of acts as an additional constraint. And so we're only allowed to sell debt that the market will bear. So you saw in Mr. Anderson's presentation that in 2021 and 2020, we had a very favorable market. That means districts were able to borrow at significantly lower borrowing costs, sometimes in the 4s, sometimes in the 5% range, which is a benefit to everyone. Right now we're in a more difficult market. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that. That affects our bond markets as well. And so if we were to go raise capital today, the return would be smaller just because the interest cost is higher. So some of the reasons that we ask for multiple districts, or we look at maybe phased bond issuances, is so we can design a kind of an overall financing plan that will be more beneficial to the district in terms of allowing us to take advantage of really good market conditions. So we always have an eye to those taxpayers in the long term. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if we need to spend a significant amount of time here. This is also sort of a reiteration of the debt limits that were already discussed, as well as the mill levies that are being requested to be approved with these amended service plans and the new service plans. Next slide, please.
So again, our request tonight from the developer for the new districts and the districts for the existing districts is a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. These service plans are currently anticipated to be heard by the Board of County Commissioners on March 8th of this year. Obviously, we're here to answer any questions that you might have about any of this.
It's a great question, Commissioner Owens, and thanks for asking it. And I'm delving a little bit into Diane's territory here, but no, that's okay. I can probably answer the question unless you want to jump in. But this is all directed by the district board that's in place at the time the bonds are issued. So you would pass an authorizing resolution prior to the issuance of any bonds, and the board, again, that is in place at the time that's passed is the board that makes that determination.
So the elected board of that development or district with energy that
You got it.
would make that recommendation.
You got it.
And they're elected people within that.
Yes, board members are elected on that 2 and 4 year. Nope, and not me either. So yeah, it's the board.
As part of virtually every district, it had the estimate, it's Exhibit D, the estimate of costs, which pertains to the entire development. What happens when those costs either decline or increase? And who determines that? I mean, this is an engineer's estimate. I know that that's subject to modification over time.
Yes, and in fact, we know from experience that that engineer's estimate of costs is likely not to be accurate within 5 to 7 years. It's going to be much higher. But for the districts, it doesn't matter. What matters is that our debt limit is set at a certain amount. So if that increase went from 212 million to 250 million, again, the district has its bonding capacity, which is much less, 129, and everything else has to be paid by the developer.
So about 83 million?
I'm sorry?
About 83 million?
Yes, yeah, it's the delta right now.
Or whatever might change.
Any other questions for him?
I had one, it's very minor, but on the Commercial Metropolitan District, page 6, under Article 2, it says the purpose of the proposed district, and it goes on, it says, this district, together with Independence Metropolitan District number 5 and Independence Metropolitan District number 6, shall be residential districts. And then it goes on to say that this district shall be a commercial district. So there's a conflict in
Right, that would be just an error, and we can certainly correct that. 5 and 6 are residential districts, and the commercial is commercial. So I will look at that. What page was that on?
on
again?
page 6
Okay.
of Commercial Metropolitan District.
Thank you. Write that down. I'll never remember.
Anybody else?
You got some?
Go ahead.
No, go.
So just a quick question. As I was looking at this, you know, you mentioned that the water and sanitation fees would be funded through tap fees. What's the current tap fee?
So I can give you rounded numbers, not exact, but our water fee is about 25,000, and all in, it's about 40,000, all of the fees combined there. So there's a water, wastewater, stormwater fee.
That doesn't equate to the 22 something million that you had listed as part of that funding plan. So is that number actually higher?
Is
If I do the math, right, so if I look at the number of houses you currently have, it's about 200, give or take a few. And then you throw in, we're gonna go an additional 1,200 on top of that, and you're talking 40,000 per. You get to a number that's well north of the 22 million.
Yeah, so the 22 million was what was bonded. The costs that we incur are significantly higher than that. So those fees are collected, they go to pay the bonds first, but then the fees will then be applied to either future water, wastewater expansion, additional pipes, connection points.
Okay.
So we do a rate study that looks at the total cost, regardless of how much you can bond against it, and then the fees are adjusted, divided by the remaining units to come up with those.
Okay, I was gonna ask if there was gonna be a restatement or restacking of the current costs based on the number of the additional.
Yes, we look at that and adjust it accordingly.
Okay. Is there also a fee structure in place for both the water and sanitation on top of that service fee?
There's a monthly use fee, if that's what you're referring to when you say yes.
And then a cost of water, or was that something separate?
The cost of water was in the original, in the tap fee component. The rate, the monthly rate fee covers kind of operations and overhead and treatment of the water and delivery of it.
And then over to y'all, just a couple quick, easy, softball questions, right? So are you comfortable with the current financing plan? And are you optimistic? And where do you see risk in the plan?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm very comfortable with the current financing plan. I mean, the way that we design this plan is to measure maximum capacity of the district based on reasonable bonding conditions in a good market. And so, you know, from that lens of analysis, I think this plan is right on point for, you know, every service plan, you know, model that I run and present, you know, all across the state of Colorado. In terms of risk, you know, what I think maybe what your question really is, you know, what do we see as risk in terms of accessing capital markets right now, which is a larger discussion about where the capital markets are. And I could probably give you a 2-minute spiel that I give every day to people on the phone across the state of Colorado that are calling to look to raise capital in the environment. You know, the biggest threat to our bond markets right now has been outflows from high-yield municipal bond funds, which typically purchase this early-stage type of non-rated security. To give you a sense of that, you know, in all of calendar year 2022, we saw $80 billion flow out of that bond market, and that erased all the gains that came in 2020 and 2021. So we're in a bit of a liquidity crisis. What I am hopeful to see happen soon is that we see that capital return back to those bond markets, which will have the effect of significantly lowering interest rates. We're in a higher rate environment overall. I think that everyone has an expectation that the low cost of borrowing that we've seen, you know, kind of over the last decade, and particularly in the last 3 years, has probably come to an end. It was a really wonderful time to raise capital. It was a wonderful time to, you know, refinance your mortgage at rates in the 2s and 3s if you had good credit quality. I mean, those days might be over for some time. But the complication of there being a lack of supply in terms of cash in our market, in addition to that higher interest rate that the Fed is pushing forward to deal with inflation, some of the other systemic issues, is kind of having that compounded effect of artificially increasing rates that would otherwise probably be bonding maybe 100 to 200 basis points lower. So my hope is that in 2023, we're going to see that cash come back in. We're already seeing a couple of signs of life. We saw you know, roughly $1.6 billion flow back into high-yield municipal bond funds over the last 2 weeks. We have new data tomorrow, and hopeful to see another, you know, hit of money come back in, and then, you know, that really gives districts, you know, access to capital, not only for these types of new money infrastructure projects, but more importantly, in a lot of ways to me, for refinancings, so we can refund existing debt because that credit quality is built out and lower those mill levies. That's sort of, again, you know, maybe to my earlier point of the bonding life cycle of the district, but want to be in a lower interest rate environment for that to be feasible. Hopefully that answers your question. I might have made up your question for you.
It does a little bit. I loved Anderson's slide there that showed the trend line year over year for the past, you know, 40 years, whatever the number was. What happens if you hit a 6-year lull like the last big downturn? Are you guys going to be looking at this saying this is something that you would walk away from at some level, or can you walk away from?
Jim wants to answer this, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
So we have private capital funding this project, and so we have the ability to continue forward. It would slow down the amount of infrastructure we would continue forward with. Might be a smaller plat or a smaller phase or a smaller process because the demand's not there or not as strong. But we basically, how we would look at it is we would fund it privately until the bond market was favorable enough to then refund what we've advanced.
Okay. So I've been representing special districts now for 27 years. And there was a period of time in about 2009 when, and some of you may remember this, when the assessed value of properties in Colorado actually went down. And in some areas of the state, it really crashed, and in others, not so much. Districts that had bonds outstanding at that time, some of them, you know, were like, oh my God, you know, how are we going to pay our bonds off with this lower, much lower assessed value? And that is the advantage of a mill levy cap. All they had to do was impose their mill levies. The bond owner cannot ask them to do anything more than that. And if that mill levy, as long as it's properly imposed, does not collect enough money to pay those bonds in 1 year or the next year, the bond owner just has to sit tight and wait for those values to come back up, which, of course, as you know, they did. We responded. But that is one of the reasons mill levy caps have been put in place, so that we don't end up with a situation where property owners are looking at a 70 mil or an 80 mil or something like that in order to pay debt service. That mill levy is what it is, can't be changed. And bonds are sold with that understanding.
They are, and maybe to put a couple of finer points on all of this, the bonds are actually structured to say that there is no event of default if there's not enough revenue to pay principal and interest in any given year, just to hone in on Diane's point here. So there really is, the risk of development or lack thereof is shifted to the purchasers of these bonds. There's a massive market here where investors have accepted that risk. The other things I would add are that, when we look at underwriting developments, I look at it in independence, particularly now with this, with District Number 1 complete, with there being momentum, within the development, with, builders at the table, a solid development team. I mean, this is a pleasure for me to underwrite. It's a pleasure to sell. It makes my life easier to walk into, Wall Street and sell this to investors with a fantastic story to tell. So that's how I would analyze this from an underwriting perspective, and hopefully between the three of us, we've answered all of your questions.
You have. I'll stop lobbing the softballs now.
You can give me hardballs too, so.
Let's see, the first one. Mr. Anderson? Right back there, just a quick question. You based all your calculations, you base it off a 4% earn? Is that what you do? Through 4% investment earn? That's everything, that's all you, that's the highest you calculate in everything on your, what?
Okay. The interest rates on the bonds, the interest rates on the bonds are what's anticipated in the financial plan. It's not really a result of my models. They're anticipating for the refunding bonds an interest rate of 4%, and for the new money issuance in 2025 of 5%, right?
Okay, yeah. Okay, 4% is what I thought I heard. I just wanted to be sure. Okay, then the second thing, you talked a lot about the history of metro districts and stuff like that. Do you know where metro districts actually started in this state? Was it a governmental requirement, or was it a developer requirement? Is what I wanted. Is somebody, because you seem to know the history. I'd kind of like to. Can somebody answer? All right, Diane, you can.
You might as well stay up front there, Grant.
Special districts in Colorado actually go back to the 1890s. Really? When mining camps in the mountains needed services and couldn't get them because there weren't towns back then, and counties couldn't provide them. So that's the very beginning of special districts in Colorado. And actually, the very first special district in the United States, Benjamin Franklin put together a fire district in Boston. And that was the first special district. And so if your house was on fire and you wanted the fire put out, you better have paid to that fire district to get it put out. But in the 1940s, there was a codification of special district law, and with some changes, and changes mostly to provide additional financial protections. Those laws remain in effect today.
Okay, all right, thank you. You seem to know the history. That was kind of. All right, now it gets down a couple questions, and these may be kind of small. So in one presentation, I see, we go through a road improvement. You have to go through the road improvement agreements. You have to go through the 2-year warranty period and all that, and then the roads are turned over to the county. Eventually, traffic lights and that are going to be, required in certain areas in that area. Did the county agree to cover those improvements?
I'm not sure what improvements you're referring to,
Let's
but
take a traffic light at 158 and Delbert Road.
so at this point, we haven't determined whether there's a roundabout or traffic lights.
Okay,
But the improvements that we have agreed to would be our improvements, and then other improvements that were based on other background traffic or other needs would be the county.
would be the county.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah. So future develop other projects, wherever that other impact comes from would be on them too.
On them to
pay.
do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
In the same manner that we're going through it.
okay, all right. The next, thank you. Thank you very much, that helps. Greg, who's doing the review, the legal review over the?
For the county, Kim Crawford did that work for us.
Okay. Will Kim Crawford be at the?
She will. She's actually here right now via phone if you had some particular questions for her. Yeah, she'd written a memo to you. Unfortunately, she couldn't make last week, but due to the snow, she had a meeting tonight, so she's, attending via that if you have any questions.
Okay, so she's the legal rep reviewing it for the county.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, if there's no more questions at the moment, then we can go on to the next step here. After the applicant presentation, we've got public testimony. And do we have everybody signed up that wants to talk?
Sign-up sheet.
Didn't have a sign-up sheet. Okay. So we've got 3 minutes a piece for anybody that wants to speak at this time. And so if you want to speak for 3 minutes, your name and address before you talk.
My name is Greg Lopez. The address is 36792 View Ridge Drive, Elizabeth. I want to submit the 26-page memorandum provided by Bart Greer, Elbert County Attorney, dated January 4th, 2022, should be 23, to the public, to the Elbert County Planning Commission in response to my letter as undisputed evidence that the applicant has failed to comply with the Elbert County zoning regulations, Article 16, Special Districts, as outlined in the Elbert County zoning regulations, page 185, and 2 Colorado Revised Statute, CRS 32-1-207, and CRS 32-1-204. The letter that I submitted clearly outlined the reasons why the public hearing notice requirements of Independence Metro Districts, 3 new and 3 to be amended, cases SR 22-0046, SR 22-0047, SR 22-0049, SR 22-0050, SR 22-0051, and SR 22-0052 are not in compliance with Elbert County zoning regulations. The county attorney's memorandum does not dispute any items referenced in my letter. The signed affidavits and pictures provided in the memorandum is material evidence that the applicant has failed to comply with the Elbert County zoning regulations, Article 16, Special Districts, as outlined in the Elbert County zoning regulations, page 185. Under the rules of public noticing process, the pictures and signed affidavits submitted as evidence by the county attorney show that the applicant is not in compliance with the public hearing requirements for the Metro District public hearing, but rather in compliance with the Independence PUD amendment. The first time the Metro District public hearing appeared on the Planning Commission agenda was August 16, 2022. Per the zoning regulations, a sign about the Metro District public hearing should have been posted on the property no later than August 12th, 14 days prior to the hearing, and they should still be there today. The zoning regulations state that the sign shall be removed within 2 weeks after the conclusion of all notified meetings, public hearings, or decisions. These signs have never existed. The PUD amendment and the Metro District public hearings are two separate and distinct public hearings, as each hearing has its own line item in the Planning Commission agenda. The chairman and the members of the Planning Commission recognize this fact, as two separate motions were made and voted on to continue both public hearings on December 6, 2022. Based on this undisputed material evidence provided by the county attorney, I believe that the Planning Commission Board has no choice but to conclude that the Independence Metro Districts, cases SR 220046, 0047, 0049, 0050, 0051, and 0052 application is not in compliance with the Elbert County zoning regulations public notice requirements. I ask the board to make a motion to recommend denial to the Board of County Commissioners on the 3 new and the 3 amendment metro districts due to the application not following Elbert County zoning regulations.
Thank you.
And do I give this to you? And again, this is the memo from the county attorney of Elbert County.
It's already on the record, but
It's already in the package, I believe. Yeah.
It's not in the packet for this hearing. It's in the packet for the PUD amendment. I am requesting it to be a part of this record or this hearing. Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
Yes. My name is Nicole Hunt. My address is 515 Signal Ridge Circle, Elizabeth, Colorado. My background is in law and policy. I previously served as a planning commissioner in Douglas County. I'm here tonight to bring to your attention violations of notice requirements by Independence. As you know, Elbert County regulations require that notice be provided for the Metro District service plans, new and amended. Independence has failed to follow notice obligations for each of the 6 Metro Districts under consideration here tonight. A simple review of notice documentation will demonstrate that notice was given for Bandera East and West PUD amendments to Independence PUD, or case PA 220036. But none of the Independence Metro Districts were properly noticed by the developer. Those Metro District cases are SR 2246, 47, 49, 50, 51, and 52. Minutes from the December 6th meeting, right here, clearly indicate that the amendment to the PUD and the 6 Metro Districts each have their own distinct case number. As evidenced by the county records themselves, included in tonight's agenda documents, Independence only gave notice for one case, PA 220036, or the Bandera East and Bandera West PUD amendment to Independence PUD. This right here is the affidavit for the mailing notification. This is the affidavit for the publication in the newspapers. And this is the affidavit for the sign posting. We even have photos of these signs that were submitted by the developer that prove that only PA 220036 was posted on these signs. At no time was notice given for the Metro Districts. That's SR 220046, 47, 49, 50, 51, and 52. No notice was given for a community meeting, no notice was given for this Planning Commission meeting, and no notice has been given for the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Independence must properly notice meetings for each of these 6 Metro Districts. Independence has not carried out this county requirement, and therefore this Planning Commission cannot favorably recommend this project to the Board of County Commissioners unless and until the developer has satisfied the notice requirements under the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Your name and address, please?
Jeff Hunt, 515 Signal Ridge Trail in Elizabeth, Colorado. My name is Jeff Hunt. I moved to Elbert County a few years ago from Highlands Ranch, and it sure seems like Highlands Ranch is following me out here. I work in advancing conservative public policy, and I would strongly recommend that the Planning Commission not support the addition of these metro districts and independents. Special districts have been called ghost government, private government, and even taxation without representation by reputable conservative think tanks like the Independence Institute. Special districts have contributed to the massive growth of government in this state. In fact, one of the only bipartisan policy agreements happening down at the state capitol in Colorado is that special districts need reform. Many citizens of Independence have no idea these taxes are about to be forced upon them, a violation of Tabor. If they were given proper notification, I think you'd have some more people from Independence in this meeting. You're also going to have a lot of officials with a lot of power that citizens of Independence are not able to hold accountable through fair elections, violations of the principles of limited government. If the citizens of Independence found out they're on the hook for $90 million, you think they'd be in this room? I think they'd have something to say about it. I've personally met with the developer of Independence and heard his vision for the future of Elbert County. It's not a bad vision. I think you all need to understand what that vision is. He told us it was coffee shops and playgrounds. It's a lot of residential and commercial development. In 2018, Elbert County adopted the Right to Farm proclamations, supporting Elbert County's rich agricultural traditions. With the approval of amended PUDs in metro districts, Elbert County is on track to reject our rich agricultural and rural heritage. I think we pride ourselves on being a conservative community. My question to you this evening is, what are we conserving about Elbert County if we continue to allow this to happen? So I strongly urge you to reject the proposed new metro districts in Independence. Thank you.
My name is Sherry Wall, and I live at 38636 County Road 5, or the Old Wilson Dairy. I'm a neighbor, a property owner. I run cattle, and I work in renovation in Denver, and I've been a realtor for over 25 years, currently with Liv Sotheby's. I'd like to address two major areas of concern tonight, the districts and road safety regarding this development. Districts are not inherently bad, but they have become a tool that is being highly abused. Currently, there are multiple lawsuits happening throughout the Denver metro area because of developer abuse. Sterling Ranch, Solterra, just to name a few. Castle Rock just completed a study of the 37 districts that is recently approved and realized that those districts now have approved $943 million worth of debt. 48% of that $943 million is interest. The districts are usually run by 3 to 6 board members, which they confirmed, which typically consist of the developer, close friends, and employees, exactly what we have happening. The districts for independence are in fact set up exactly that way. I reached out to the Coloradans for Metro District Reform, and they said that the one place where big trouble starts is when a developer stays in charge of the board and limits the involvement of homeowners. It's a developer's district, and that also, to my understanding, is the language that's currently in place. The district board approves massive amounts of debt, and the debt has to be paid by future homeowners for decades. We're talking 40 years here. I looked up the homes for sale in Independence, and currently a property that's $750,000 has an estimated tax of $8,665. A home just south of the development in Elbert County listed for that same $750,000 has established taxes of $3,630. That's over a $5,000 difference, and that is a debt that the homeowners are saddled with, and they have no voice. I'm not sure if I have these figures correct, but one of the documents said the district will be increasing the debt by approximately $129 million. That means that each of the current approved homes will have to be saddled with approximately $140,000 of debt. Would you buy a home for $750,000 that has a hidden $140,000 worth of additional debt? You're in it for close to $900,000. The horror stories are endless. Mill levies jumping homeowners' tax bills so much that they can't make their payments. My question is, they have a mill levy cap, but with the current numbers that we're looking at that cap, or is there still additional room? In short, I feel that we need more time to scrutinize and understand the districts before we award the opportunity to come into Elbert County and freely spend and weaken our property values. As far as safety, I just quickly want to go on the record as requesting that due to the fact that County Road 158 is a minor collector per the Elbert County Transportation Master Plan and does not have shoulders or a scheduled expansion, all commercial development should be contained to 166 or Singing Hills. The developer has previously stated that most of the traffic will be heading out of the neighborhood north onto the new Delbert Road. So let's cluster commercial where the traffic is headed. Also, if the future school is relocated onto 158 from inside of Independence as requested, the developer should be required to build sidewalks to and from the school for safe access.
Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you.
My name's Terry Duffy. I live at 20566 Eagle Feather Lane, Elbert, Colorado. A memorandum dated January 9th, 2023 to the Elbert County Board of County Commissioners from Butler Snow LLP is a very telling document. Debt issuance section says total combined aggregate debt limit for the Independence project is over $129.2 million. The comments section notes that the current mill levy proposed for debt service is 71.230 mil. The conclusion of the memorandum is that the structure, headings, and elements outlined in the documents comply with the state law, but lacks any information as to what occurs should the metro districts not meet their debt obligations. The starting price of the homes in Independence is $500,000 per their own website. The current total county mill levy, which includes all taxing districts for the residents in Independence, is 77.40 mils. The current mill levy proposed for debt service is 71.230 mil. If you approve these applications, the total mill levy for the residents of Independence will be 148.60 mils. That is a 92% increase in mill levy. A current family's tax bill living in Independence will go from $2,688.64 per year to $5,163.88 per year. That is an increase of $2,475.24, representing a 92% increase. That is a monthly tax of $430.32 to live in Independence in today's tough economic times. Who can afford that monthly burden? I ask you not to vote the approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ken Turnbull. I live at 7651 Carolyn Drive in Castle Rock. I recently purchased land in Elbert County. I plan to move out here, build a home, and retire. I'm a commercial real estate licensed broker, and so I meet clients firsthand. We live in a capitalist society, and people have a free choice to purchase homes where they want. The problem that we've had from realtors is that a lot of them aren't educated on metro districts. So they bring a person into a home, and here it is, and they sell it, and they don't bother to, by the way, you're in a metro district. And I attended a class where the presenter was just down on metro districts. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Well, what's the alternative? No homes, because no one's going to finance this, and they can't afford homes that don't have the financing that extends out. So in order to get into a $500 or $600 home, that infrastructure has to be financed, and metro districts work. Sterling Ranch, yes, is expensive. Highlands Ranch in its day was expensive, not so much anymore. And people are happy to be there. Thousands, tens of thousands of people are there, and they're paying these fees. I see it, right? I'm on the front line. So people, if they aren't happy with it, they don't have to buy there. They don't have to buy Independence or anywhere else. So to take away the financing from these people, leaving them with nowhere to move, affordable place to move because of the upfront cost. So I strongly support metro districts as a means of having subdivisions and development done. As a broker, I support development in general. And I guess if I'm building my own house, I'll be a developer here shortly and absorb all of the negatives. But I would like to just mention that freedom of choice is with the people to purchase or not. And it's up to us realtors to inform people up front. You're in a metro district, your taxes are $86,000, across the street, they're, $8,600, across the street, they're $3,600, and let the people choose. But have nothing on the other side, but only the $3,600 is a limitation that I just don't see. Why would you limit people from having the choice? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Muselli. I live at 38851 Country Lane. Directly affected, quarter mile of 158 is my frontage property. I have seen the changes tremendously over the course of time. The heavy traffic that comes up and down the road is unaccountable. 8 to 10 heavy trucks a day. We know that new construction coming in a county has to grow. There's no question about it. But this problem with 158 and the severity that is involved with the traffic that's there is only going to increase over the course of time. I am coming forward to you today to ask you to keep them accountable to the things that they say that they're going to do. I've attended other meetings to hear about recreational centers that they were going to build, how they were going to have special districts put in place to help us homeowners to accommodate different things that are in there. And after living through some of this nightmare on 158, I'm coming forward to you tonight as a landowner that stands and represents 3 overturned vehicles in my pasture over the 10 years that I've been there, and the amount of traffic that's going to be increased. So I'm asking you, as elected officials, to keep them accountable when they talk about having the traffic situations looked at, when they talk about repaving. I'm living the nightmare that's there with these heavy trucks on the side roads. It was brought up earlier that Singing Hills will accommodate that much better, but I'm not going to force that upon them. The damage that's done to the road with these large trucks that are coming through there, and as I stated, change doesn't come easy. I understand that. But when they talk about the repaving and when talk about doing it and simply putting up a sign that says, the road is damaged, be careful. We live with that there. I'm a homeowner and a landowner, a taxpayer that lives with this and watches the rate of speed on that road. So I'm asking you, coming forward, to say, hold them accountable when they talk about repaving. Hold them accountable to do the studies that this road is going to accommodate the heavy traffic and the trucks that are there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Susan Schick, 4122 Down West Ride, Elizabeth. I'm going to start at the bottom of my speech so I can end on time. I think there's a partnership that's supposed to occur between the county, the citizens, and the developers, and one of the things we're missing right now is the county's 2021 financial audit. The county has recently come out of a period just 5 to 6 years back where we were nearly bankrupt, and it was because this county was overspending the revenues on an annual basis and never turning in a financial audit and never taking corrective action. We had a long-term heavy debt on the Justice Center, and the county was adding funds to that debt in order to just run basic business. Today, without an audit, the Office of the State Auditor has placed Elbert County under a property tax withholding order. It's been in place since November 15th, and so all property taxes or revenues coming from taxes, new taxes, are not being released to the county to pay its bills. That's going to stay in place until they turn in a financial audit. One of the things I look for in the audit is an update on the Independence development that we last saw in 2020. I don't have that today, so I can't really comment from the county's financial standpoint where we are with Independence. And Independence developers never come to county meetings and give voluntarily any kind of status. I believe what we're seeing here with this application to increase the number of homes and increase the number of districts is clearly a financing scheme to accommodate what I believe is a search for water. We know Independence recently lost prime on a well and had to cap up one of their deep wells and had to drill another one. And we know that water was being trucked in to supply Independence with the required water for the existing homeowners. I just think we're on really shaky ground right now. I don't think this is the time to approve an expansion when this development has not proved that it's financially viable, and certainly the county has not proved that it is financially viable. I think this is premature. I'd like to hear more from Independence voluntarily. And when they put language in these service plans that say that their changes are not material modifications, that's a big red flag to me. Material modifications are spelled out quite in detail in the statutes. And for them to say that their changes are not material modifications should be a red flag to all of us. And I think that language should be removed from their service plans. Or they could stand up today and explain why they have that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
My name is Brad Ite. I live at
Is your microphone still on? Is it green?
Thank you. My name is Brad Ite. I live at 1110 Legacy Trail, Elizabeth, Colorado. I'm a current board member of the Elbert and Highway 86 Metropolitan District. This is the Wild Point subdivision of 181 properties. A little bit of history of the Wild Point subdivision, to give you an idea about metro districts and the financing. In 2006, $5.5 million in 30-year bonds were issued. In 2016, 10 years later, these bonds were refinanced. Again, a 30-year bond of approximately $5.3 million. The original bond issue then of 2006 of $5.5 million will be paid off in 2046. The total cost to the Wild Point residents in principal and interest for these bonds will be $14.7 million. So when you see a $90 bond being issued, the cost to the residents is well above $90 million. It's 2.5 times that, most likely. Just for information, this service plan was also authored by Diane Miller. The question was asked by the board who made the decisions about refinancing bonds. It is the Metro District Board. But typically, the board early in the development are controlled by the developer. To give you an example, the Spring Point Valley Ranch has 6 metro districts, and currently the number of residents on the board of these 6 metro districts is 0. Also, you might want to ask about the developer advances. This was not addressed in the financing, but typically the developer gives advances early on in the project, and just what is the interest rate that's being reimbursed to the developer for these advances. Also, what are the recall timeframes for the bonds? Are they 5, 10, or 15 years? Because this makes a big difference if the Metro District does have a little bit of extra financing to recall bonds and save a lot of money in the future. Just food for thought. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Very short comment. My name's Dennis Duffy.
Lift the mic up a little bit.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Duffy. I live at 20566 Eagle Feather Lane, Elbert. And I have a simple comment on the reports that are given to you guys in the community, the committee. You have impact to the county. You have fiscal, services, infrastructure. Under fiscal, your answer is unknown at this time. That's your fiscal response, and that's, you're making judgments. This is a red flag with no information. I just want to point that out.
Hey, is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, then public testimony is closed at this point, and we can do the applicant rebuttal. You've heard what people had to say, and if you could address those issues.
Thank you, Commissioners. With regard to the first two comments, with regard to notices, the developer and the districts have worked with the county. We believe those notices are absolutely in keeping with your regulations, and I think we've had multiple discussions on that. With the concept that, people don't know about districts, people don't know about districts if they don't take the time to look at the website, if they don't take the time to look at the transparency notice that's on the Division of Local Government's website, if they don't take the time to get on the emma.msrb.org and look up the financial information, or if they don't get on the state auditor's website. There is a wealth of information on districts because we have to be transparent. And the information isn't just available to people who live within Independence. It's available to anyone who wants to look at that information. So I think when people talk about, these being ghost governments, that is simply not the case. We have to follow every single statutory and constitutional requirement that every other government in Colorado, the county, every municipality, we have to follow all the same rules and regulations and statutes as you do in terms of posting notices, open meetings, open elections, etc. I do think I think his name was Gorbel, but I may have misheard it, who said, nobody has to buy property in Independence. If you look at this and you think this is not something I can afford or want to do, you can go find somewhere else to buy your property. But I will say this about it. There is notice to new home buyers. 2 years ago, the state legislature put in place a new law, and every property sold in a metropolitan district by a home builder has to have a disclosure document that talks about the district, that talks about how much debt is authorized, and that gives examples based on the mill levies authorized by the service plan of what your taxes could be. Those have to be provided to every buyer, so they're not left without any knowledge of what's going to happen here. And again, they can also go to all those websites and look up that information. The final comment from Mr. Duffy, the impact to the county is, yes, you're going to have maybe more infrastructure to maintain. You're going to have property values to maintain it with. All of these districts are going to increase your assessed valuation the same way they increase assessed valuation of the district. And so when this project is built out and it has an assessed value of hundreds of millions of dollars, that is also an increase to the mill levies that you impose and have for maintenance of projects in your country. That was all the comments I wanted to, unless someone else. Oh, yeah, okay. There was a comment about dumping debt on existing homeowners. That is not true. I think we've demonstrated that District 1 has issued all its bonds. There will be no more additional debt to any homeowner who is in District 1. They're done. So it's only in those new districts, and those new districts are not developed. There's not a single home, there's not a single commercial piece that's in those yet. So that'll be in the future. Anybody else?
this might be a little bit more in Diane's territory as well, but there was a comment made about how, from one of the existing board members, and I want to say the Elbert and Highway 86, I don't know if it's commercial or residential district, but that there were no homeowners on the board. And so I think it's important to note that, and Diane can go over kind of the election cycles and how all of that works, but oftentimes we have a situation where homeowners don't run for boards, and so it can be very challenging to fill boards down the road after a development builds out. Diane, I don't know if you want to comment at all on the election components of.
Yes. The minute someone moves into a district, they are an eligible elector. Not only can they vote on district matters, but they can sit on the board. And so when we don't get homeowners on districts, it's often because they don't want to be on the board. I have a district in Adams County that's 26 years old. It's all residential property, and we have yet to be able to convince a homeowner to sit on that board. So it happens. But in Independence District number 1, for example, the one where we do have development, we have a homeowner on the board. She got on the board last year through the election process. So homeowners do get on the board, and they're eligible as soon as they move in. As soon as they move in.
Anything else that you noticed that was covered?
Oh, she kind of covered everything. Yeah, I thought she hit most of the points they brought up.
I'm sorry?
I thought she hit most of the points they brought up.
I think she hit most of them, yeah. There was a comment about one of the wells that had to be capped. Is that true? One of the water wells that you had a problem with that had to be capped or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's relevant on this tonight, but we're in the process of continuing to develop our water system.
Well, you say develop the water system, but the well's already drilled, it's been developed. So the question was, has a well been capped because I guess it went dry? Do we have a dry well?
That's not true.
I'm just repeating what someone asked.
Right, understand. We didn't have a dry well, but we're continuing to develop for future expansion and drilling new wells. I can also say that we did not import any water into the project for serving the homeowners. We did bring in water for construction dust mitigation.
I remember that discussion before.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we've had the applicant rebuttal, and now we'll go to the board-only discussion. So we'll start down at this end.
Right, so oftentimes development when it's first starting up, it's owned in a corporate name, by the developer entity, and so there are no people who can vote in the district. Title 32 is unique in that it sets up a process to allow the court, when the district is organized, to name the first board of directors, and they serve the various terms, 2 years or 4 years until the next election. If there are let's say development is slowed down and there's no homeowners after that first election, those people will probably stay on the board. But eventually, like I said, as soon as there are homeowners, they are eligible to sit on the board. And whether they become board members is really just a function of how active they are as part of the district. Absolutely not, no. That's absolutely correct.
Could you please turn your mic on?
We're going to write your name down.
Sorry about that. So with respects to the noticing, I just want to be clear that for the metro districts, we're, or maybe that's more of a question for Greg. I just want to be clear that
We had Bart's opinion on that, and if you would like to.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is the code section that's relevant to that is notification is required in accordance with the Special District Act and Title 32 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. And it's the county attorney's opinion that we comply with all notice requirements.
sorry.
Pam? Eric?
Yeah, I just had a question. Diane, right? I'll make sure I got my notes right. And that, to piggyback on, hey, when there's like no homes, no homeowners, I should say, I'm sorry, we get the board, people move in. Is there anything in Elbert County, in our rules or regulations that state how does a developer in a community on the next cycle of voting say, hey, now we've got 27 homeowners, which would be maybe 54 adults. Are we going to those, every single homeowner, and say, hey, be on the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, although it's not an Elbert County regulation, it's a state law requirement. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, you will see a notice mailed or emailed, if they've given their email address to the county clerk and recorder, mailed or emailed to every resident within District 1, where we have real homes and real people, advising them of the election date, and how, if they want, and how many spaces are available on the board that are up for election, and how they can get a self-nomination form and turn it into the designated election official if they want to be considered for that position.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
Who is that they turn that into? Who is the elected?
I'm the designated election official for Independence number 1.
So it's not just somebody that's an infamous somebody, huh?
Okay.
Roger. Going through all the verbiage in the districts, the amendments and the new ones that were asked for, each one states an assessed valuation for districts 1 through 6 plus the commercial district, and that is repeated, and it talks about the assessed valuation within each district. What happens if those change?
I think I'm on here. It's a projection based on the financing plans that we ran. Those financing plans basically take the development that's planned to occur, the market valuation that is anticipated to follow that development, and come up with a market valuation number. Statutory assessment rate is applied. We come up with assessed value number that's projected for each of the districts. If that assessed valuation is lower in the long run, essentially it generates less property tax revenue that's available for bonding, that's available for operations and maintenance. If that assessed valuation is higher, which over the course of the last 10 years in the state of Colorado, and I'm referencing Mr. Anderson's chart, that biennial reassessment rate, that inflation rate in existing assessed value has averaged 3% annually. So typically the assessed valuation projections have been significantly higher in Colorado in the last decade, and the property taxes generated by that assessed valuation would be higher. And what that really means in effect is that, if you have existing bonds and your property values are higher, meaning your assessed valuation is higher and your property tax revenue is higher, the effect of that is typically your bonds could pay off more quickly, or you have more coverage, you have a lower debt service mill levy that's required to be imposed to generate the amount of amount of revenue needed to make debt service payments that are already in place and scheduled.
But if it's less, then it goes back to what you talked about earlier, becomes a developer's responsibility.
That's exactly right.
Okay, on the question as to the noticing, brought that up last hearing. We didn't ignore, in fact, we turned and asked Greg if we appropriately noticed everything. And at that time, he said yes. Now, you know, I'm not very smart, really. You're an attorney, so I'm probably pretty low down here, but it seems to me you're asking that we recommend denial based on an improper noticing. So, first of all, I kind of get there. One, we as a board, we're the planning commission, we're evaluating these applications, and they're bringing these metro districts to us because we're looking at them and we're comparing them to the code. And all we are ultimately doing is we're just recommending either approval or denial or approval with conditions. So in our situation, whatever we approve really has no bearing on anything. Whatever vote we make really doesn't, because actually, before something can be stopped, or let's say, if there's an issue with the noticing, one, you have to file something, either an injunction to stop it, or file a suit to claim that improper noticing. But before you can do that, there actually has to be action. And I'm thinking, we're not taking any action. All we're doing is we're stating, okay, hey, we think this is a good idea. And it's going to the board. Now, when things apply, yes. When action is taken, then if there is something there, yeah, then, okay, no, we're not going into having conversations. I'm just kind of...
Okay, we're reaching awful close to our mandatory time.
Now is we're in a position where all we're doing is we're looking at it. We've listened to everybody's information. We've kind of got some opinions. Now, the actual concrete information is going to go to the board because that's going to be the review from the attorneys. So really, I kind of think we're in a position to where whatever we do here, however we vote, really has no bearing on how it was noticed until it goes to the board.
Okay, we're going to have to.
So that's, I'm kind of thinking through that to see, you know, to give merit to their issue that they brought up, you know, and so.
So my understanding is that if the Board of County Commissioners approves it, it still has to go to the district court.
Yeah, that's ultimately.
So it isn't just something that happens here at the Board of County Commissioners, but it's also in the district court, right? So
yeah,
to get that all.
Ultimately, you got to go through district court.
Yes, so you'll make your decision tonight, your recommendation. It'll then go to the Board of County Commissioners, who will either approve or conditionally approve or deny the service plans. Assuming that they are approved or conditionally approved, we then have to create what's called a petition for organization to the district court. Now, that is only for the new districts. The existing districts have already gone through the court process and don't have to do it again. So the amending districts 2, 3, and 4, if the Board of County Commissioners approves those, that's all that's needed.
Great. Okay, thank you. So
So really, I don't think.
We have a deadline where we're going to have to get out of the building. So go ahead and ask your question.
What happens if we didn't approve?
Edie, turn your mic on, please.
What would happen if we didn't approve it tonight?
I can answer that. If we don't approve it and we deny it, it still goes to the Board of County Commissioners. No matter what we do, they still hear it. We can deny it, and it'll go to them. We can approve it, and they can deny it. I mean, it's just.
So So it's up to the people to go to the commissioners then?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Because our position is all we can do is recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind and knowing what the time is,
Yeah.
Can I hear a motion?
Time to quit.
can I hear a motion?
Yeah.
Can we real quick,
Danny?
put the conditions up again real quick?
There are no conditions. I can put up the review criteria or the findings.
We've already seen that. Okay, so. Danny, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, go back to the, something I can reference, so I would, it's a planning commission.
There they go.
Okay. I would recommend that the amended 3 metropolitan districts and the 3 new metropolitan districts, as stated up here on this slide, and I'll go through all the numbers as you guys can all see them.
46 through 52.
Yes.
Minus
So,
38.
at this point, I would recommend approval going forward to the board.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Now, you can also go to the Board of County Commissioners on the 8th if you wanted to speak to them as well.
Greg.
Okay, you stated
You can't do anything until a decision is made.
you made a decision. Let me tell you the decision you made. Just humor me for a minute.
Just a quick note, we've got a mandatory time to be out of the building by 11 before the fireworks start.
Because I can't talk to you until it's past the board.
No, that's true.
That is not true.
You and I both know that you no longer have any say on this issue at all. No, you do. Look, no, you opened a public hearing. You're responsible for enforcing these rules. You opened a public hearing without it being publicly noticed correctly. The memorandum from the attorney, if you read it, you would know that he's specific to the PUD amendment. He doesn't even mention the Metro District. Look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then let me go back to what I told you.
Yeah, I will go to the county.
Then file it.
Well, the
File
unfortunate.
it. Okay,
I will.
stop it.
No, I'm not going to stop you.
You can't even file it until an action is taken.
That's true, but I can definitely let people
Right.
know. Well, you know what? Until the decision, if the Board of County Commissioners opens a public hearing without it being properly posted,
You know what it takes to file a suit or file an injunction?
it really doesn't matter because I have attorneys
Okay,
that will do it.
okay,
But it's
yes,
not for me.
but go to your attorney,
No, I know.
tell them where you're sitting now,
Look.
and ask